welcome back to the third episode of Fort Knox Gets Attacked. That is the initiative attacking Rage System, which is the home of Hard Knocks. And this third and final timer will decide the fate of the first ever Keepstar built in New Eden. That one is called Fort Knox. You're looking at it there on screen. And we're about 90 minutes away, an hour and 17 minutes away from the timer coming up. That's the third and final timer. And then after that, we expect that it will be destroyed and a ton of loot ejected from it. This might be the biggest kill of any single kill in EVE history. One assumes that Hard Knocks, a very powerful wormhole alliance, has been filling Fort Knox full of their treasure, so to speak, and half of that will get destroyed completely and another half will get ejected out into space. I'm not sure about the 50-50, but I do think there's a different ratio in wormhole space. If you're joining us, you can jump into Discord. You can get to it through talkinginstations.com Discord. Sorry, talkinginstations.com. Look for the Discord icon and you will pass into our Discord, and we are in the public channel. Feel free to come and join us. You can lurk, you can sit there muted, it's fine. Discord also is where we'll be trading information back and forth in the public channel, which is what we normally do. So we will get the latest on updates from various people there. And I will be relaying information to you as much as I can from sources in and around this entire conflict. All right. Not only do we have the Fort Knox timer coming up, but we have a few other timers before that, at least one. I'm going to change some information here. By the way, do we have anybody in system now?
Yeah.
How's it going in there? And state your name first.
This is Kakatosu with Init, Mercenaries, and Hole Punchers. Go Hole Punchers.
What's
There's
going on?
A giant. We've got a giant fleet sitting on the Fortizar. We've got two fleets, both with Hole.
Now, I've heard there's probably not going to be any resistance from Hard Knocks. Kind of interesting, because people thought, well, maybe they would say that in order to soften up the initiative. So there might be a break-in attempt. That is an attempt to get into this system, because right now they're completely locked out of their home system. So any help that Hard Knocks could get as far as commitments would have to find a way into this space. The space is totally locked up by the initiative, is guarding all the doors, the holes, the wormholes into this place. And we would have seen that activity in the last 12 hours, but we haven't seen anything happen or heard of anything happen. So we assume that there isn't going to be any resistance, and we will see the destruction of this very impressive Keepstar.
Sounds about right.
What's been going on during the day? How long have you been here?
I actually just woke up, but looking at pings, all it's been is reinforcement fleets. There hasn't been any real engagement.
So you guys are pouring in here, huh?
Sounds about right.
Where are the fleets coming from? Like what groups?
Looks like all of Imperium, but mainly.
So mainly initiative?
Yep.
All right. Final timer. Okay, I guess that information is correct. We'll actually change this to... How much is left on that timer? I see 1 hour 17. That can't be right. 100%, let's say. So... All right, so it's at... All right, is that an hour and 17 minutes before it comes on? Oh, we'll say hi to Brisk Rubal. How are you, Brisk? brisk when he's able to talk. Been helping
Hey,
us out.
everybody. I hope you're all getting ready for the fun.
What have you been doing in there?
Well, we have been killing towers, basically. Biding time and just farting around, not doing much of anything, really. Just full control.
So you're keeping the doors locked, basically.
Yeah. Watching them blow up a bunch of stuff, which is unfortunate, but I guess that's the metaphor for how wormholders deal with evictions, apparently. At least I've been.
Oh, what do you mean by that? They're self-destructing stuff so that you can't have it?
And because they can't get it out, so we've seen, at least so far today, a couple, I want to say maybe over 100 caps, and then a lot of random just little. They've also been contracting ships to members of Init and fleets and some other folks because since there's no asset safety, when the Keepstar blows up, those all appear as kill mails if they are destroyed, or they may get ejected into space, and then you can either get them or you can shoot them, and then they're kill mails. So if you look at my kill board right now on Zkill, you'll see 23 random noob ships that were ejected into space that we blew up that are technically mine, but that I'd never owned before. So we're having fun. It's a lot of little amusing things.
Have you heard from Hard Knocks in there?
We've talked to folks a little bit internally. Nothing too crazy.
Mm-hmm. See, I'm going to try to fix this camera. There we go. Should lift it up. Well, we're in a bit early to show you guys what the status of things are. You can see that it's 1 hour and 2 minutes. So we're going to be under an hour pretty soon. And I don't think this is not a typical fight. Normally, when you have a fight in nullsec, at least, these are the larger fights. People gather about an hour before and jump into system to stage themselves in the system to get tactical positions. Now, in a wormhole fight, that's not the case. People would usually try to get in here and position themselves long before, because they're trying to find their way in through blocked gates, because wormholes can be sealed off by the occupants of the wormhole. And so you would see things hours before, maybe 6 hours before the actual conflict were to take place. But now that the sides are kind of set and initiative continues to hold control, it would be unusual to see Hard Knocks like assemble anytime sooner than the actual reinforced time, which is 1 hour from now. Oh, it's in low power mode because it is in its third timer. And if you can see this, I think there's 2 Keepstars on your screen. One is up front in the foreground. That is Fort Knox. And oh, there we see that self-destruct has been initiated. Or what is that? What are they self-destructing? Capitals?
It's been primarily capital ships, a lot of dreads, some random carriers, but mostly dreads and faxes so far that we see.
Really strange camera artifacts, so I'm trying to get rid of those. Turn this off here.
I've gotten some criticism on Reddit for my stance on this, but I'm kind of disappointed in the amount of pushback that we've gotten from HK. I think we all expected more fights than what we've seen. Uh, I mean, granted, yes, we're bringing a large number of players into the system, more than they can field. But traditionally, we've normally seen from guys like this, and often what you find in these fights, these big fights, is folks will try to pick off the stragglers, pick off the random guys who are doing goofy stuff. Um, it just hasn't been a lot of that. It's weird. It seems as though, other than jumping in, self-destructing, and then leaving, or logging off, that there really hasn't been a lot of action. So, I mean, granted, we're not here for good fights. We're here because we wanted to do something historic, and that's what we're doing. But I will say I expected more out of these guys than what we've seen.
Did you say you were getting pushback, or?
Oh yeah, I was getting yelled at by a lot of people. Oh, why would they show up? Why would they even bother fighting? You're just blobbing them. It's 20 to 1. You're bringing 2 million players and they only have 6. Why would they fight you? Type stuff. And to which I just have to shake my head, because going into this, when I was told about a month ago what we were going to do, um, I was surprised, because this has literally never happened before, and the reason is because everybody believed that these Keepstars and Hard Knocks this was just, you could not get in here, you could not take control, you'd never be able to evict these guys. Even the wormhole guys that have tried to evict them have not been able to do it. And to think that a bunch of nullsec guys who don't spend a lot of time in wormholes would be able to pull this off against arguably the best wormhole group out there. I didn't think we could do it. Um, and now we're being told that this was the easiest thing, and all we had to do was bring numbers, and it was inevitable, and they knew that it was going to happen. It just makes me laugh when you're standing on the wreck of the impossible to kill empire, and people are saying, oh well, it was just a matter of time. It just makes me laugh.
Oh, okay. Do you think it's the same people saying? I think when you hear things like that, it tends to be different people, because you hear on one side, "Oh, you guys are swamping them. Why are you doing that?" And then those people stop talking, and then different ones say, "Oh yeah, well sure, it was easy. You guys had it the whole time." It's not the same people going back and forth. I don't think it is. It might be, but it would be ridiculous if it were.
I just think it's funny, it does annoy me to a certain extent, because the amount of effort and work that went into planning this and getting it ready and getting all the ships seated and doing all the logistics. I mean, the logistics alone was Dunkirk level of operations, and it all had to be done in secret without stuff leaking and nobody hearing about it. And to say, oh well, it was just inevitable. You guys brought 1,000 players. Of course, you're going to win. I mean, that kind of pisses on all the hard work that these guys did.
Well,
I
that's
think
not work.
it's not fair.
That's not work Initiative did. That's work that Wormholers did. Uh, Wormholers that did not like HK were the ones that put down all the logistics for you, set it up, and then worked with your FC to have you guys come in and do this, which is to essentially blob a wormhole. Once you got those doors open, you all poured in. Now you have something like 1,700 guys sitting in here. How in the world do you expect a wormhole group to combat that?
Well, to that same point, the Fortress of Delve isn't any more impregnable than Hard Knocks.
I mean, my response to that would be that, first of all, it was our wormholers. It wasn't just random wormholes. It was our
Yeah, but when
wormholers
did they
that
join Initiative?
months ago. Like, I mean, this has been in planning for, as I have been told, at least a year. And it was one of the reasons why these guys joined us, was they wanted somebody big enough that they could pull this off. But that's what I have been told. I have not. I'm still waiting to hear the entire story, because I've only got about the last months of it. But the fact is, these guys, they did the work, and getting whole control and maintaining it. We have had to run 24-hour or 23-hour a day fleets since Saturday. I mean, that's almost 5 days of real world time where we needed to maintain a solid number of players that were in here that could not get fought off by these guys. And we've done that. I mean, that's who else has done that? That's not something that you do in a nullsec fight. You don't expect your entire crew to have basically a 5-day, 24-hour a day long CTA. You just don't. So I think that again, that's another thing of where the folks saying this was inevitable and all you're just blobbing, that they're not really being fair. Now I'm not saying that this was the most exciting and amazing thing in the history of Eve, but it's probably in the top 10. So
Yeah.
there you go.
I would agree with that. This is a big deal. All right. Well, go ahead.
I feel like in the after effect, like
This is a
Brisk,
Jurius Doctor, man.
Hey, Brisk, I think in the after effect, we almost need a write-up in. I mean, I hate to use a real-world example, but sort of in the same way as the aftermath of, like, the defeating of Al Qaeda's leaders. Like when you look at the whole operation that went into taking down, figures like Saddam Hussein, there's always a write-up after the fact. There's always an after-action report that details the training, the timing, the secrecy, the planning. We need a write-up like that because these stories, they're way more, like you said, than just what we see at the front, which is the big fight and the structure dying. There's a lot that went into making this happen, and people will never know that story if we don't write it.
Well, we are going to have the people who planned this on our show, Talking in Stations, and we'll also try to get Pando on. We'll get to the beginning and take it through to the end, the whole story. We've been covering this live for the first 2 timers, trying to piece together the information that we could. And during that entire time, there has been rumors that this was a revenge plot, that Init was leveraged in to bring the numbers. I do know that this has been planned for many months, possibly more than a year. It takes a long time for any wormhole eviction to happen, and I think we can consider this an eviction because the information that I have is that they're going to destroy everything in this system. It's not going to be one Keepstar and the job is done. They're going to annihilate everything.
Good evening,
Yeah,
Adderall.
it's a scorched earth.
Yes. Hi. Whoever said that.
That was L2.
Oh, wait, L2. So the idea that that this happened overnight is clearly this is not the kind of thing that somebody does on a whim. It's just that it was so well kept that people were impressed that it was such a surprise to everybody. It was a shock. I found out from somebody in it, hey, we're doing this. You might want to look into it. And so we immediately started to assess. Once we knew it was real, we went live to the scene, and we could only put up pictures because it's very difficult to get a camera in there at the time, since they were at the very beginning of this. It could have gone either way. Those beginning moments are very, very important. So everybody was concentrating on getting their job done instead of getting us a camera feed. But since then, they've been able to relax a bit, and you can see now that we have a live camera.
So,
but during that whole time, there's been rumors of how this actually got started. So we're going to get to the bottom of all that on Thursday with Talking Station special tomorrow, and then again on Sunday. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
there's been a lot going on in the last 24 hours over in the wormhole. As you can see on your stream, there's a few more structures that have been reinforced, and there's quite a lot of timers in there now.
Do we know if the people who organize this are going to release a long-form statement?
So there's going to be a write-up. It's been announced. There is going to be a write-up as soon as everything's done and over with. We'll have a full write-up.
Well, one of the things that Init does very well is they put out statements and presentations and artwork. I know Sister Bliss is a pretty good artist.
There was amazing propaganda video released as soon as we hit the wormhole that you guys saw, I'm sure, on YouTube.
Yeah, it was prepared and put out at the same time that this place was being hit. This has been a pretty solid campaign. There was a few scares where they might have lost control. We call it hold control. And if that were to have happened, it would have opened up the game to be a different thing. But Initiative was able to destroy the fleet that was coming in, or at least half of it, or part of it. And that really, there hasn't been any attempts since then. So that really sealed the fate of this Keepstar in this system. Because everything's going to burn down in here.
There have been a few occasions where things have gotten a little hairy, but we saw what was happening, and things have been taken care of since then. And it was interesting with the big scare that you were talking about was they had found a connection. They had the connection to get their friends into the wormhole. So they were trying to attain hull control at that point to try and get their allies into the Munin and Cerberus fleet. And the FC on the Hard Knock side made a tactical error. They were trying to get to the Raven fleet that was on grid, and they were completely ignoring the Stuka fleet that was on the hull almost at 0. And there were bubbles up, and they landed right at optimal bombing range from the Stuka fleet, and just 50 billion in ISK, and ships got wiped out pretty quickly. And 50 pods, I think, is what we counted. So that kind of sealed the fate.
Not, and to L2's point, if we had not been able to stop that fleet, there were at least 200 or 300 Horde and HK allies that were on the way, and they would have managed to get in the hole.
Yep.
And then that would have changed the odds here quite a bit. So that was very important. But that was the only breakout kind of real move we've seen in the 3 days of trying to get folks in here. Otherwise, the only ones that have managed to get in have been dribs and drabs in cloaky ships and interdiction nullified ships. So that's it. But
yeah,
I was hoping we would have seen more fights than that.
There've been a few other scares here and there, but I don't think we're allowed to talk about all of that yet. But it's nothing like that just has happened yet. So.
Well, the reason you're not seeing fights, Brisk, in here is because you can't just skirmish around. If you get potted, you're thrown out of the system. So wormholers have to be very careful not to attack at the wrong time or skirmish carelessly. They need to attack together. They need to plan it right. There's a lot of timing that goes into this. They can't reship. It's not easy to do, especially when they don't have hull control. Those doors aren't open to them for coming back. Now, if you guys skirmish and fight and get potted out, you can find a way back in pretty easy.
That is true, and I'm not discounting the fact that it's difficult for them, but that we've made it that way. My point though is that in a 24-hour fight over multiple days, there are going to be times ebbing and flowing when they're going to have greater numbers and we're going to be able to field, or they're going to be able to at least see how many folks we've got, because they can get eyes in various areas and see where we are. They don't have to just count on local because it's not there. There were ways to do it, and I'm just surprised that they didn't try to pull a US TZ primetime type fight with us, because that's probably where we're the weakest. I would have thought that would have been what would have been a standard trying to move, but other than that one time, we haven't really seen a lot of moves like that.
Yeah. So once again, getting a lot of love from wormhole community, Brisk.
Yeah, they like me about as much as they did before. I mean, I'll be honest.
Let's go back a bit.
Go ahead.
Finish your statement and we'll go back a bit. Go ahead. I
laid it on pretty thick on Meta Show when we were talking on Saturday, but a lot of that was psyops because we had no idea how this was going to go, and we were still working on it. I mean, I think the fact is the wormhole community has come together pretty solid behind HK, and they did their best, and I think they're all rooting for them. But many of them, they all know what it's like to get evicted. They don't like it. It's not fun, and they all know what it's like to fight, against a bigger group. And I give the wormhole guys credit. I love the wormhole guys. I love that community. I think it's great. They're very solid. They love what they do. They care about what they are, and they have pride in that. And I've had fun spending the last 5 days in the wormhole. I haven't left. I've been in here in the same 2 ships for the last week, so I feel kind of like a little bit of a baby wormhole.
All right, now let's go back and let's talk about your relationship with the wormhole community. What actually happened a few months ago after you became CSM?
Well, one of the things that we had recognized was that thanks to the election results, there was no wormhole specific candidate that was able to get enough votes. I think it's the closest came in was the runner-up, number 11, was TikTok, who spent a lot of time in wormholes. But other than that, they did not come behind one individual. And I've kind of have become the voice of the oppressed minorities on the CSM, trying to represent all those groups that don't have voices, that didn't have somebody that was specifically elected from their area onto the CSM. So I reached out early to the wormhole community, and said, "Hey guys, I want to work with you. I know you don't have anybody, and I know I'm not a wormholer, and I don't know everything there is to know about your space, and I'm not ever going to be as good at doing that as Noobman or any of these other guys that were wormhole folks were, but I'm going to give it, the old college try. So help me out and let me know what's going on." So I started talking to them, got to know Ixuki and a couple other folks, got into some of their discords. They provided me with some stuff that they had wanted, and we provided it at the summit. And then we were able to get CCP to make some changes to a number of long-standing issues that folks had, and one of those was fixing the 500 MN Lurch Hictor bug, which is a primarily a nullsec thing, but there was an emergent gameplay mechanic associated with that the wormhole guys used because those ships could change their mass easily, and it made rolling wormholes much easier for them. But by fixing the problem that was created in nullsec by that, it caused problems for the wormhole guys. So that I got a lot of heat for that.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, we pushed pretty hard, and we said, look, we understand that this is an issue, and we knew in the summit when they had said that we were going to go ahead and make this change, that I said, look, thank you, we appreciate the nullsec guys and the folks that have been on the receiving end of the Lurch Hector. I considered it an exploit, but I guess it was legitimate, even though it was not as it was intended. Those of us who've been on that side, we appreciate you fixing this, but you got to fix the wormhole stuff because you're really screwing them over by changing something that they've come to rely on over the last couple of years. And we pushed and pushed and pushed, and CCP, to everybody's great surprise, actually fixed it, and they fixed it before they broke it. Within a week, there was a solution. CCP Rise and the guys came out and put together a script that you can use in the Hictors that would give them basically the same ability that they had before, and we got it fixed for the wormhole guys. So there were a lot of them were mad at us and mad at me in particular because I didn't stop it in the beginning, and they were generally happy that we got this fixed. But there were things they really wished that they had instead. Mm-hmm. So I did my best. I wish I had done more, but that's my kind of history with the wormhole guys, and that's kind of what I've been doing with them.
Did you campaign on any wormhole issues? Was there an expectation that you would help represent them?
I did not campaign on any wormhole issues. What I said in the beginning was I was running to represent the average player. I'm not involved in the meta. I'm not an alliance leader. I'm not a fleet commander. I'm not, any of these bigwig type guys or Reddit famous. Well, I guess I am now, but I wasn't back then. And that was my whole thing. I wanted to be able to represent everybody. And so as a politician in real life, my whole thing was, all right, I'm going to see these guys. If folks feel like they don't have a voice, that they're not being listened to, I'm going to be the one that does that. And so I've done my best to do that. And that's kind of where it came in. And when I saw that the wormholders needed a voice, I said, hey guys, I'll probably be the worst wormhole CSM there's ever been, but I'm the only one you got, so I'll do it for you. So that's kind of where that relationship went.
Yeah. And again, everybody gave you credit, but I think the overall theme that really got all of CSM in trouble was that all these guys, at least 8 out of 10 of them, were all from nullsec, and it seemed like then their issues are the ones that get talked about with CCP, and that was an example for them that their representation wasn't good. And yet all the guys on CSM pointed to you and said, hey, he was the guy speaking up for you, but CCP did it anyway, and the rest of us don't care about you. And they made sure that everybody knew that. The at least 2 out of 3 of the other guys, two or three of the other guys on CSM let the wormholers know that they just were not considered and would not be. I would say that's not a good move for CSM to act in that way, right?
And I agree. Unfortunately, I think, in real life we have gerrymandering where districts are designed so that one party has control and they can pretty much do what they want. the way that the single transferable vote works in the CSM means that there are some folks who are completely safe and can get reelected out of women, don't have to do much other than whatever they want to do. And those folks tend to be more honest about their feelings than somebody who is actively concerned about getting reelected. So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
That was Aerith from Goon Swarm. That was Killer B from NC Dot. And I don't know if there was anybody else that was saying stuff. What was Sort Dragon's position on that change? Do you remember?
I think Sort was working with me and pushing them pretty hard. Sort has never been unwilling to step up and tell CCP when they're making a mistake, and I think that was one of the situations where we recognized that. So, yeah, he's been a partner in crime of mine on a lot of these.
Right. All right. So that was a while ago, and now did that change? It did go through, and it did affect wormholers, or did they somehow balance that out before it went through?
Before the change to the Hictors was released, the new script was created so that when the change went out, there was an immediate fix. So there was never a time when they did not have something that they could use in place of what they were using before. And that was a big win because it took a lot of time, and Rise did a lot of work to get that done. And I give CCP credit that they recognized they were fixing something but breaking something at the same time. And they went and they did the right thing, and they got it fixed before it went out, which I think is hopefully a sign to the community that this is a new different kind of CCP that's not just going to break something and let it stay broken for 2 years before they fix it again. I mean, literally, it was within a week they had announced that they were going to fix it and had a plan in place. So I think they deserve a lot of credit for that.
Now, so has that come into play at all in this scenario? Like, did that help or hurt anybody on either side?
No, because we haven't been using Hicks to do the rolling, at least as far as I'm.
So that's not been a non-issue in this event.
I think it's more of an issue for folks who are trying to get into C1s and C2s and some of the lower level stuff to do PvE. And for folks who are trying to roll out their statics to get new connections. This one in here it's not really been a huge deal. We've been using carriers to do a lot of the rolling since we're trying to crit stuff.
Yeah. Now, you guys that are in here, anybody surprised that wormhole groups tended to rally around Hard Knocks, or was that something that's expected? I'll ask that to chat too.
I feel that that's expected because it's like when you get a Scottish guy and a British guy in the same room. My family's Scottish, and the most commonly uttered phrase in Scotland is "fuck the English." And you get a Scottish guy and an English guy on a battlefield facing somebody else, and they're brothers. And fuck you if you get in their way. So they're allowed to fight amongst themselves, but the second you have an outside force coming in, they band together, and that's sort of what we saw.
Yeah. Okay, next time describe that without the expletives, please.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. Yeah, I was wondering about that because we knew initially that Hard Knocks had, I guess, made it tough on other groups. I mean, there is this feeling that, especially from some of the people that organized this, and I won't name names yet because they're different groups and they haven't allowed me to use their name yet, but we'll again have them on Talking in Stations tomorrow and Talking in Stations on Sunday as well, along with the FCs from the initiative. But I lost my point in plugging the show. That's what I get for doing that. But the idea that some groups didn't like Hard Knocks because, and this is what I was getting to, I remember now, it was that they and Laserhawks and Shekel Squad, and these are three of the major groups in wormhole space, would not allow anybody to grow powerful enough to contest those three groups together. And so everybody else was kind of repressed. And so then if you have that scenario, and I'm not saying it's true, I'm just saying that's one of the reasons that one of the planners of this gave for doing it, revenge, because everybody else was being held down by these three wormhole groups, HK being the leader, pretty much being the strongest of those three.
How's that different from the null blocks?
It's no different at all. I think you saw the same thing in the Viceroy program. That was basically the Imperium up north when they were living in Decline, basically saying, you can't even live in this space unless we allow it, and that invited a lot of anger, which was one of the multiple reasons. There must have been 5 or 6 different reasons that you saw the Imperium get wrecked up in Decline and move down to Delve. So you're seeing that again here. If that's the way it's looked at, and at least it is by this one individual, then Fort Knox is going to demonstrate to Hard Knox, the group that owns it, that they will be humbled, and this is partly revenge. Now, the initiative isn't necessarily on board with that. They're not here to avenge. They're here to do something that is considered impossible, which is to take out a Keepstar in wormhole space, especially under the noses of Hard Knocks. So there are different reasons to bring people here, converging motivations to do this, and it looks like with enough people, and I believe you have like 1,700 in system, that it's going to be possible. It'd be hard to resist 1,700 pilots anywhere, but inside of wormhole space, that's an impossibly high number. Normally you have, in wormhole space, I don't think there's a normal amount of people that fight in these kinds of fights. It can get pretty high, but nowhere near 1,700 or 1,500 people that are invading this wormhole. This is an eviction from nullsec, which is known for having a lot of players show up when there's something to be done. I can't imagine. I think the biggest wormhole fights that I've seen over the last 4 years have been under, I'm just going to put it out there, 250 people fighting in the same hole. But and let's
sure it's not closer to 100.
I was going to say 100, but I think there might have been one with Arctic Light. I think they were evicting or fighting somebody, and that might have gotten it up into the. I don't know though. I honestly, maybe 100. So this kind of a fight is essentially what we've never seen before, and that is nullsec entities actually fighting in wormhole space on a large scale. That has never been seen in 10 years that wormholes have been around. Usually, if you see a big fleet in wormhole space, they are traveling through it because wormholes are often used as transportation mechanisms to get shortcuts to different regions. There's a fight going on and it's too far away for your 300 people to get to, you will find wormhole network, and that's mapped out, and then they use that to get to the fight in a shorter time. And if you're like Black Legion, you don't check the mass settings on the hole, and it collapses while half your fleet has gone through, and your fleet is effectively cut in half, ruining your day. That happened at least 2 or 3 times in a row. So I think they stopped using that to travel. It's kind of funny because wormholers are known for being good PvPers, but more than that, they have to think about all kinds of things that nullsec and lowsec PvPers have to think about. They have a whole different range of calculations they have to make and tactics that they use. Now, I'm seeing a lot of stuff. I invite you to chat with each other in the chat here on stream. We have a lot of people watching. We're going to see the destruction of this Keepstar in 30 minutes from now, almost exactly 30 minutes from now. And I think it's fair to say this thing's going down. And what's going to be interesting is how much can be recovered from it. Not only from the initiative that's the ones, or the group that are going to destroy this, but from the owners themselves that are positioning themselves to try to pick up as much of their stuff as they can. And how will they do that?
That's a good question. I think what we're trying to make sure that the guy.
Oh, you got cut off there. Brisk, I think you've been muzzled.
There, can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. What we were trying to do is make sure that the guys that put the most time and effort and ISK into all the work, that they get the loot first. So we got a blanket. They get the loot for the first half hour if we kill this thing, and after that, everybody else, it's a free for all. So hopefully, we've asked the goons to be good and to follow our lead, and I think they'll probably do that. But that's the goal. Let these guys recoup some of their losses.
Yeah, this is a giant piñata, right? So once it explodes and all the candy falls to the floor, you're going to see this crowd of kids jumping in trying to grab everything. How are you going to make sure that you guys have the best loot for a certain group of people?
We can only tell our guys what to do and hope that they follow the rules. I assume that we will have the Stukas jumping in and staying in close and blowing up anybody that's trying to loot whore. But I don't know. I have not. We've asked our guys not to do it, and hopefully that'll be enough.
So it's really just an honor system.
Essentially, yeah.
And it's not an honor system just with initiative. It's an honor system with Imperium and allies, because you have snuff in there and tissue in there as well.
Correct.
Yeah, now I think that I've heard, and I'm not an aficionado in wormhole space at all, even though I was in Adhocracy early days when it had started and just after wormholes came out, that the groups that own a structure that's going down, there's very few Keepstars in wormhole space, will prepare freighters and somehow try to scoop things up and get away and then log off. And once it's logged off in this system, they really just wait a month or two until it clears out, log back in, and then find their way out. Or they find their way in. But wormholers are amazing at finding their way through this mysterious area of the game. For those people that don't understand what wormhole space is, there's a lot of material out there. You should go and watch stuff, a lot of tutorials, but essentially it's a maze of connections that are invisible to players. They have to discover the connections. And in doing so, those connections are there only temporarily. So it's almost like, well, I guess the best way to describe it, if you've seen Harry Potter, don't they have a library where the staircases keep moving? And so you may end up in a different part of the library using the same staircase, a completely different part. That's kind of what happens with wormhole space. Those holes shift around. So for normal EVE players and high sec or low sec or null sec, this area is very dangerous. You can get lost, you can get trapped. Obviously, there's dangerous things in here. This area of space is completely without any form of law, so it's considered nullsec rules inside of here. Again, the dangers aren't just combat. The dangers are everything else as well. It's a very interesting part of the game. I'll also say, if you do get lost, there is a service that's provided by EVE Scout. They're a rescue service that you can apply on their website saying, I am stuck in a wormhole and I don't know how to get out. Can you find me? And you give them some information, the system that you're in, and they will find you and lead you out. They're like St. Bernards for people that are stuck in the snow after a landslide.
Huge props to those guys too, because that's an invaluable service.
Yeah, it's the thing about EVE Online, for those of you that aren't that familiar with it, it's a game that is really a game made up of many, many other games. There's 30 games, 30 different types of gameplay in the game. And the thing that is amazing, they take those 32 and they make strains of gameplay that are above and beyond what was ever imagined by the people who made the game. So where you have wormhole space and all the dangers that come with it, all the deliberate gameplay is very complex. But then in addition to that, you have mutations of people finding ways to do things with the game as it's available. And so that is why you'll see a group dedicate themselves to nonviolence and to doing good deeds, like finding people who are stranded and using all the skills that people would normally use for combat, take those skills and apply them in a different way to the game. I think that's one of the magical things about EVE Online, is so many different ways to play this game.
I love you, Matterall. You're an EVE Quaker.
That's what happened with JetCam mining, wasn't it? Was that it was a dev testing tool that they never removed from the game, and then one day they realized that it was getting used for mining.
Yeah, that was Hilmar himself. His story. He was finding out that those things, those jet cans, which are basically ejecting your cargo into space, those things are pretty big. They're not supposed to be that big. They just kind of put an arbitrary number, and it was huge. So what miners found was that they could mine, and then eject into space, and the can that was ejected was gigantic, many times bigger than their cargo hold. So then they would just fill that floating container in space and then have somebody else come and haul it. And that interrupted them less, so they could actually mine with a lot less interruptions and faster and stuff. So, but that was an accident. It was a programming accident. And it became a tradition for those that don't mine. You would eject it, and then you would mark the time on it, because those things expire after 2.5 hours. It's kind of a mystery when they expire, but if it expires, it takes all the ore that you mined with it. So you always want to put a little date stamp on cargo that's ejected so that you know to pick it up before it actually expires.
That's one of the other beautiful things about EVE players, is that the level of attention to detail that happens with things like that is that, like, you know, if there is a exploit to be found, or a unique trick to be played upon, or something to be profited from that has sort of been unforeseen by the developers, or left in the game, or not considered a viable means of approaching the gameplay, they'll find a way to use it, and it's really kind of beautiful.
Yeah. Merchant's Dream says, then came can flipping. Can somebody describe can flipping?
Yes, can flipping is the activity of provoking somebody into making a mistake that engages the crime watch system, so that you take a suspect flag, which then allows them to engage you in combat with impunity.
So it's a
And
trap?
usually, yeah, so it's a trap. So basically, if I eject a canister and I'm mining, and you come and try to take the goods out of it, and you're not in my fleet, you will become suspect. At which point, you're a bad guy, and I can shoot you however much I want.
Hence the common ease catchphrase of "baited on a free can."
Oh, is that okay? Baited on a free can. That's hilarious. One of the things I remember a story is, we're waiting for this Keepstar to come out. Let me just give you an update. This is Fort Knox. The first Keepstar ever built in EVE is right there on your screen, and that looks like it's on its 20 minutes away from its demise, which is actually very sad. We had a whole show on this Keepstar. If you look back for Talking in the Station's archive, you'll see there was a show on this Keepstar and how it was built and how they were so efficient in getting it up so quickly. It really was created days after the blueprints became available for Keepstars. This looks like it's going to be at the end of its life in 20 minutes, a little bit beyond 20 minutes.
I kind of feel like CCP has to step in and create another one of those commemorative items, like the Pieces of Steve, to mark this event, because this is kind of a big.
This is a very big deal. Of course, because of that being the first Keepstar. It's also what I love about this story, and the reason it's so interesting, and the reason we've gone live with it for 3 nights in a row, essentially, is because it's the mutation of things. You have nullsec basically invading wormhole space, and wormhole space rallying around Hard Knocks, even if they didn't like them, to help them out, because they are so disgusted by seeing this. And I know that there are strong feelings in the wormhole community about seeing this happen. I can imagine it's a worse nightmare for them, because at this point, if Hard Knocks can't hold back nullsec, then nothing can, really. So that's one mutation. The other one, of course, is you have completely different cultures of fighters. So nullsec is a group that fights together as one in large numbers, and wormhole fighters are usually doing different tasks in a fleet to gain advantage. So tactically, they're all playing a role, whereas nullsec, you have everybody fighting in unison, and so those styles are clashing in here as well. Not only that, preferred ships and all kinds of different things happen there. Go ahead.
Can I propose a potentially unpopular theory or idea about what's going to happen afterwards?
Sure.
So during the Second World War, the Midway Islands were extremely important in the Pacific. They were important as a beachhead to hold back the Japanese. They were important for the Americans when they, took their Pacific naval forces across to engage the Japanese. But after the Second World War, the Marshall Islands, the Midway Islands, a lot of the, Guam, a lot of smaller islands just stopped being important. And I feel like wormhole beachheads are going to be exactly the same way for nullsecers, because unless there's something to be exploited at a value that makes it worthwhile for nullsec blocks to keep a presence there, there's really no reason for them to stay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see if I understand that. No, I don't understand.
So I'm saying that this system, the rage system that they're in, killing Hard Knocks' structure, it loses all strategic importance once they've completed their Scorched Earth campaign and evicted and burned out Hard Knocks. The value of that system immediately disappears for nullsec.
Well, it has historical value, of course, but it also they don't just pick these systems and name them, and they don't pick them because they're pretty. There's a lot of effects. They're called weather effects inside of wormhole space, where your weapons may function even better than expected or not as well. And not just weapons, but your thrusters and your armor plating, and it depends on where you are, what type of wormhole you're in. So,
of course, no, but
yeah.
My point is, I don't think that init's going to move in and stay there.
No, I think there's zero chance of that happening. No, once this place is cleared out, if Hard Knocks decides they want to keep it, they're still awfully skilled. They may want to recover it and rebuild it. Who knows what happens after this? And again, who knows how much of their own loot they can escape with? I think when these things explode, the loot is just random, right? It flies in different directions, so there's no way to earmark certain things. But it might. I don't know. I haven't been in this position. I've been in Keepstars that have exploded. I'm from NC Dot. It happens. We've lost a few.
We've killed a few of them.
Yeah. Also, I had my own Keepstar that I had to defend and stuff. And when things with Keepstars are not typical, so I don't really know how the loot mechanic works in this system, and I don't know, because of wormhole space, if there's additional weirdness to it that Hard Knocks would be able to take advantage of that, say, nullsec people wouldn't know how to do. We should see. That's one of the things that we're going to see in just a few minutes. We'll see the feeding frenzy.
I think that's going to be interesting, because I want to see what it looks like too, because nobody's killed. At least no nullsec guys really have been involved in any of these fights. So I'm sure, Laserhawks and others that have killed Keepstars inside, they'll know what it does, but none of us know what it does. So I'm interested.
I think Gary Bell there says that it basically ejects a bunch of cans in a big ball, and then people rush to those cans and try to grab whatever's in it. But it is it's a mystery. You grab a can, you don't know what's in it until you look in it. So people will probably rush this and try to open as many cans as they can, look for their best options, and then put that in their cargo. Since their cargo space is limited, you don't want to fill up your cargo with subpar stuff. Or I suppose you can fill it and constantly open new cans and throw out stuff that you don't like. But you've really got to make quick decisions on what you want to keep as you're doing this sort of a thing. I've never been a good looter. You know, after every fight, I've never looted the field. I think I tried to once. It was when I was in Stain, which is a terrible place. Stain is awful. I have nightmares of Stain to this day. We were a new null-sec alliance. We were a low-sec alliance, and we were taking sovereignty. And so we decided to go to Stain. Actually, we were working with CO2 at the time and the Initiative. We were taking AAA and removing them from catch in that area. But we were staging in Stain. And essentially, we had moved there with just the clothes on our back, so we had no gear. And we were dying for gear, so we were all fighting over just like a 1MN thruster. And it was a race to grab it, you know, because there was no stores, and everywhere you went left or right it was just a long pipe where you'd get killed. So we were essentially, it was a cold winter and we were starving, so we were fighting over the wreckage of our enemies whenever we won. So that's what that reminds me of. But since then, I haven't really been a looter. So after fights, when all the wrecks are on the field, people will go and loot and take stuff to save themselves some money, get some good items if the person you destroyed had good items. So we're going to see that times 1,000,000 because you have the home, the treasury of Fort Knox, the Keepstar, full of stuff. And I know they've been self-destructing things, but we don't know how much is in there and how much is actually going to be destroyed with the explosion. Assume a lot.
And I think that's a good point because first, there are 2 Keepstars in the system. There's another Keepstar on the grid. So theoretically, we have not refed that one yet because we're trying to space it out because we know when the final timer for that one will be. So I think it's possible that some folks will have moved their stuff from Fort Knox into the other Keepstar. And at the same time, we don't know what's in there. I mean, I'm hoping beyond hope that we get a lot of good stuff out of this, but it could be Al Capone's vault. We don't know.
You want to explain that for people who didn't see that show? Al Capone's vault.
So if this was very, very old school. If you're old as I am, then you would remember this. Geraldo did a giant special where they were going to open Al Capone's vault on TV and see what was in it. And there was a whole
hold on,
up to it and weeks long. And...
Let me stop you for people that don't know who Geraldo is. Start there.
Dear God. Geraldo is currently a Fox News talking head. He used to have his own daytime talk show, and he did a lot of it was Phil Donahue, Oprah, Ellen DeGeneres type stuff, but it was crazy stuff. But he did this whole show about opening this vault that they found that belonged to Al Capone and what could possibly be in it. And they opened it up, and there was nothing in it. It was the biggest anticlimax in TV history up to that point. This was in the late 80s, early 90s. And it became a joke of the don't open something that you don't know what's in it on camera because you never know if it's going to end up being anything or not. So I'm hoping that this will not be Al Capone's safe.
Yeah, in other words, Fort Knox has nothing in it.
Exactly.
I feel like there's a secondary joke there.
You're going to have to tell us what it is because I can't think what it is.
Fort Knox has nothing in it.
I mean, that would be funny, right?
Yeah, not getting it.
You go to Fort Knox, United States Gold Reserve, go inside and find out there's nothing in it.
Might not surprise me. I think this Fort Knox will have stuff in it. I just don't know how much it's going to be. You know where else there was a big letdown? Another Al Capone vault situation. That was when a long time ago. I'll tell you a little story since we're waiting here. We've got another 10 minutes before this thing goes under attack, so we have time for a couple more stories. A long time ago, Solar Fleet, which is an alliance that had a lot of super capitals, and this was many years ago, maybe like 8, I don't know, 6 to 8 years ago, was pinned and cornered, and they were told that they could leave to LowSec and leave a war that they were losing to NC. and PL, and N3 at the time, actually, so Nulli Segunda as well. So they were told, look, if you just stop fighting, we'll let you vacate your stuff over to LowSec and you'll be fine. And they were deceived. So Solar Fleet was put all their stuff in one station, and then that station was taken and locked, and it was called dead zoned. And that's the first dead zone that happened in EVE Online. And that basically means only one person has the key, and that person is locking that place down so you cannot get back in. Nobody can, except that one group. And so what you had was what was supposedly a station. I think it was something 3PO, and it was full of a lot of super capitals and freighters and freighters and freighters worth of equipment from Solar Fleet. And it was dead zone for 2 years. Well, after about 2.5 years, it was finally taken away from the group that had dead zoned it because nobody came to defend it. And it was taken by another small group of pirates, led by Art Bay, by the way. And if you don't know who he is, he does a lot of Alliance tournament stuff. So his little group was out there and took the station back, and there was nothing in it. So I asked a diplomat from Solar Fleet, I was like, well, now that it's open, are you going to take all your stuff out? And she said, well, no, the stuff was never, it got taken out long before that. So that was a big letdown. All right. Back to the task. What we're looking at is Fort Knox in its final moments. It's 7 minutes to go before it can be attacked by the initiative, which will probably start scrambling pretty soon. Their Raven fleet out and about to try to take this thing on. It will be defended at least by one person who's going to be manning the defenses on the starbase itself. And you might see some lightning bolts coming out of that structure. That would be its doomsday effect. But really, the story here is how many people initiative is brought in. They brought in themselves and allies, and we find out that there's probably something like 1,700 pilots that are in this system. They will all be awake probably and ready to go, because when this thing blows up, there's going to be a lot of wreckage and a lot of loot. And they will all try to get a piece of that.
Adderall, I'm very excited to say that we finally hit TIDI in a wormhole. That's pretty exciting.
TIDI in a wormhole, 56% and climbing is what we see here in chat. That is unusual, especially because this wormhole system has been reinforced by the company that owns EVE Online. So this is a massive showing.
Wow. We had it for a little bit. It's gone now, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah.
We got up to 60%.
I think it depends on how many people are coming in to system, how many people are logging in. It could be that sort of a spike that you would see. There's a lot of calculations happen when a pilot enters a system. But if the TIDI is gone, then it's not caused by any kind of combat. Oh, Villy's in here. How you doing, Villy?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Good. Are your guys in here? Is Test in here?
No, we're not needed in this conflict at all.
Oh, you're not going to try to get...
I think Initiative and the Imperium have most certainly got this situation quite wrapped up with the numbers they have. To say,
We know you're here in spirit.
not really. You guys didn't ask us to come, and you don't need us to come. It's like we're just enjoying the show.
Do you have any feelings on Hard Knocks? Any experiences with them?
Oh, we've got all kinds of experience with them. You have to ask a more
General
question. I mean, Hard Knocks has been they've been a changing entity over the last couple of years. They've went from primarily kind of like a splinter PL wormhole group and slowly their own entity into the landlords of wormhole space. To, now the landlords of a good chunk of the drone regions, and now they're they've kind of, how would you say it? decayed a bit in their complacency, and
lost some key
now
members.
they're at this kind of situation.
Yeah. I believe Braxis is their leader now. Before Braxis was Noobman. And they had some BL, Black Legion members. Mujahideen, I think, was a popular Black Legion member.
Yeah, Braxis is currently the guy in charge, I think. But
Yeah.
he's pretty sharp fella. He's smart, but the situation as it stands, he's just so outnumbered and so outgunned. There's not a lot he can realistically do here.
Yeah. I just wonder what their exit strategy is. How do they? I mean, they've been destroying things during the day, I imagine, but
well, when you live in a wormhole, there is no exit strategy. It's kind of how it goes in wormhole space. That's why they've been self-destructing, because they know they can't evacuate it.
Oh, that's a good point. Well, I was being told that there's a way to grab some of your stuff and log off, or try to log off until everybody goes away and then find your way out.
Yeah, well, absolutely. They can load up, freighters worth of stuff, put it in a freighter, undock the freighter, be tethered, log off in space, and log back in 2 weeks later, and nobody's going to be here except for them, right? So obviously that's an option. I'm sure they have a multitude of smaller citadels and systems that are unreinforced, I would assume.
Yeah. Safing up is what it's called. Thank you, Zay66W. Now I think you kind of explained it there, though. So you fill up your freighter, you're tethered when you undock, and then you log off in space. And that way you're out of the Keepstar, so when it's destroyed, your stuff is not ejected or destroyed.
Or they could also warp to, say, unreinforced Raideru or Astros or Fortizarn system and dock there if there's one of those. I don't know the current status of the non-Keepstar citadels and system. I assume some of them are reinforced, but as long as they've lived in Rage, I would assume there's a multitude of.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
So Tuzzy's in here with us too. He's a logistics commander for the Imperium. How you doing, Tuzzy?
Hey everyone, how are y'all?
Any ideas on what we expect to see here?
Oh, I have in no way whatsoever been involved in any of this. I stay away from wormholes.
I know that you are not a fan of wormholes.
I'm not a fan of wormholes.
But Keepstar Destructions, is it different in wormhole space? Does anyone know?
With regard to what? Other than the reinforcement timers having a slightly different mechanic, and there being no asset safety, and of course you don't have supers or titans. Otherwise, everything's mostly the same.
Okay. And so,
otherwise, those aren't small. Factors.
Yeah, small factors, but there's no other special things like it's got double HP or any other kind of mechanic like that. Other than that.
Well, what's the phenomenon Rage?
I don't think Rage has any. I heard on another show the other day, it's one of the wormholes that it's just completely.
Oh, I didn't know that actually, Jurius, when I was answering your question about why somebody would build in this place.
Yeah, so I was I had just sat down and I heard Billy describing the what's known as just safe logging, or we of course safe logging, but there's it's holds special connotation or you just cram a bunch of items into a ship, undock, untether, and safe log out. That's I understand that's what Hard Knocks has been telling their own people to do all day. If you look at the lost mails of this system, they're insurance frauding all the caps. Dreads have been dying all day to self-destruct or whatever. They've been undocking and just and blowing up their own ships to insurance fraud them. I think that they're probably going to fight the final timer. I really don't think they'll win at this point. I really think they know they're going to lose.
Well, we're about to start. 10 seconds to go.
Well, I think realistically, if they were going to fight, there would be more people undocked than what is now undocked. It's almost a pretty safe bet.
Yeah.
All right, timer's up.
People in the station.
I think they way overestimated I heard a lot of talk leading up to this when this, the first timer, that they thought all wormhole people would band together and go after the nullsecers because, at the end of the day, we favor wormhole culture over nullsec culture. And I really think Hard Knocks made their bed. They've pissed off way too many other wormhole people over the years to have those people come and spend all of this effort to try to save them now.
Well, it's a combination of things. I don't think Hard Knocks realistically, even if they could have secured the support of every single entity in wormhole space, made a realistic defense in this situation. You have to realize that 50 entities with 10 people each is not the equivalent of 2 entities with 250 people each, right? Even if both entities can, in theory, put together 500 people, their equivalent is not the same. You deal with incredible amount of trouble organizing, small groups into one larger group. Deal with communication issues, leadership issues, chain of command problems, just organizational difficulties, comms difficulties. It's just not easy. And the general populace of wormhole space is traditionally the kind of people that stay away from that larger, high lag content. They're generally not interested in that kind of stuff. So it seems unrealistic to think that there was ever much of a shot that they would be able to, defend against what I'm being told is 1,500 people. If it was just, 400 or 500, sure, but 1,500 is quite a lot for wormhole space.
And there we're looking at what are probably Ravens getting into position to fire on that Keepstar.
I believe that what you're seeing down there.
They look kind of small though. Maybe they're frigates. Sticker
I think
fleet
that's
bombers.
I think that's the Goon jacked off fleet. I don't think that's the Raven fleet yet.
Okay, yeah.
From what I see on the
not
screen
in
there, it looks like
Raven
there's
fleet.
been
I'm
a
with the,
smart bombing attack. Is that correct?
That would be the orange circle that you see there at the top.
Well, maybe those are just tick bubbles. It's hard to see from this angle.
They would get brighter if they were overlapped. That's why they're. Can you tell
that group
us?
Up there looks like the Ravens.
Okay, at the very top of the screen, we'll see if we can get that in there. It's a little bit out of frame.
We have one full Raven fleet, and I am in our whole control fleet right now, so I'm not on grid with the Keepstar. So I'm watching the stream to see what's happening.
Okay, so let's see.
We got TIDI back.
There, you can see now that off in the distance, I'm going to turn off the titles so we can see through this.
Somebody was asking in chat, Villy, how do you think, or Villy, how would you have used the dreads that they're self-destructing, and could they have defended with?
They could have went down fighting with those dreads, but I don't think they would have been successful defending Keepstar with just the dreadnoughts. They could have set up what would you call it, the Jintan 4-point defense on the Keepstar. You might be familiar with the creature when he set up dreadnoughts on multiple points around the Keepstar, or he originally did it on a Sotio, but it's much the same for Keepstar. It's larger space, obviously.
Yeah.
But even then, those dreads would basically be trading. You might kill 4 or 5 Ravens per dread, and in theory, maybe that's favorable. But the problem is, you're not necessarily going to make, how would I say, much progress. I'm sure Initiative has a large pile of reinforcements to respond to the user Bane Nathoa. The key point of how that strategy works is you set up the dreads at the edge of tether on multiple angles around the Keepstar so that you can do it. You would have like 10 to 15 packs of 5 to 10 dreads each. That way, in theory, it's extremely difficult for them to maneuver around the Keepstar to avoid the dread range.
Yeah, keep in mind the Keepstar dread is immense. The Keepstar tether range is immense.
Yes, I'm quite familiar with.
Yeah. When we were attacking X-47, we specifically positioned our fleet behind and slightly below the Keepstar because of the undock point of Supers and Titans. At one point, when they were getting primary, they would try to dock up to avoid our doomsdays. And then when they would undock, they would be so far out of range because they were on the other side of the Keepstar almost for the undock point. That
Are you talking
in that
about the
TIDI,
original X-47 fighter or the
yeah,
second?
the first one, they would dock up, and then that would basically put them out of because when they managed to undock again, they could not undock and like angle their ship up and basically slow boat back around the whole of the Keepstar to get in gun range again. And it was going to take them in that TIDI like 6 or 7 hours to do that maneuver.
Notes tie-dye is achieved again at 72%. When that gets 10%, time is slowing to 10% of its usual time.
So I had a question. Did anyone else see the or I don't know if you guys talked about it already, the tweet Doom Chinchilla put out earlier regarding to asset deliveries?
No.
So
What has Mr. Doom Chinchilla said?
he it was quite amusing. I think I saw it on Reddit. I'm not sure where I first saw it, but apparently ex-PL members of Hard Knocks were you know how in Citadels how you can right click on an item and deliver it to someone, and unlike a contract they don't have to accept it, it just shoves it in their delivery hanger. Ex-PL members were delivering Doom Chinchilla all sorts of ship holes in the keep. And I'm unfamiliar with wormhole mechanics as far as when Citadels blow up and the loot pops out in space. If I, Tuzzy, have ships in my hangar in the Keepstar and the Keepstar dies and they pop out in space, do I get a loss mail?
Yes, you would.
Yes, you do.
So people are delivering items to other people as a joke so that when this thing blows up, their kill boards will be filled with loss mails of all the ships they were. So all of the XPL Hard Knocks members were delivering various ships to Doom Chinchilla to troll him, and he was spurging on Twitter. It was very amusing.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, some people are very concerned with the way that kill board stats kind of work, obviously, and you know, I'm free to take some carriers if anybody needs to pop my lost mail board up much. But the reality is I believe you still get insurance on them.
I don't know.
You do, which is nice. And I had Doom has had it worse than I have had, but I had about 100 ships delivered to me today.
So if anybody wants,
we were able to get about 60 of them out though.
Okay, well, if anybody wants to deliver me 100 dreadnoughts, I'm okay with that. I'll take 100 dead dread lost mails on my kill board for some insurance money. But for certain groups and certain people, their kill board is an extension of the way they feel about the game, and it obviously is a unfun experience for them to have it ruined by others. So I could definitely see why he would be upset about
it. The other thing he was upset about was a lot of the ships were Lokis and Tengus, and he is going to get skill point loss if those die. And that's
really?
it's just mean.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just mean.
That's a meme right there.
Yeah, I would think that CCP might need to alter that one, to say the least.
Well, yeah, I know some people were using it to troll a while back in a I think it was a wormhole.
Yeah, somebody delivered some ships to Vile Rat and a couple other players.
Yeah, people in chat are saying that that's not the way it works.
Yeah, I thought Tissue did that. They delivered something.
That seems, how would I put this? Exploitive and broken, even to me on the worst.
Well, I'm sure that if that does happen, and that's what I'm under the understanding that it will happen, but we'll find out. I'm sure he'll get that reimbursed if he.
Anyways, we're watching the Ravens warp back in. Looks like, or maybe this Jackdaws. It's hard to see from this angle. But the Keepstar is going down bit by bit by bit.
Yeah, thanks for that update. Can we get a status on how much damage has been done? This is its third and final timer. It will explode after this. And the timer is paused now. We do not expect that anything will stop, will unstop it. Normally, we would want to see a Keepstar tick down to safety. But
Keepstar is at 85% right now.
Yeah. Now, this should go fast.
It's going to take a while.
Oh,
TIDI especially. These things are slow to die.
Well, listen to Billy on that. This is going to take a while. TIDI did kick in. Is it still there? Do you know? Anyone in system?
It is right now 55%.
Seems to be fluctuating between 70 and 50%. Yeah, 55%.
What is that structure that they're all grouping on in the top right of your screen there? Is that the Friendly Goon Swarm Initiative structure?
That is our Fortizar.
Okay, so you have a Fortizar.
We have 30 Raytarus and a fort and a couple Astra houses now, and some towers that are also in here.
Have you guys reinforced all of the Hard Knock citadels in system?
Everything except for the second Keepstar. We are waiting to do that later this.
Okay, so you are going to reinforce the second Keepstar.
As I understand it, the goal is to clear this place out. I know that they wanted. We know the timers is set for the second Keepstar around like Saturday in the middle of the night, like a late Friday night Eastern U.S. time zone, but it's like 100 or something Eve. So I think they're trying to spread things out so that we have stuff to do the whole week. Since we have timers set that are going all kinds of crazy. There was a ton of stuff in here. I mean, it was just absurd the amount of stuff that was in here.
Yeah, must be incredibly difficult to watch your entire home get destroyed. Must have been years that they've built this place up.
Yeah, it has been years, and it is a piece of the fragile nature of controlling or owning anything in EVE Online. That everything you have in some way or shape or form can be taken from you to a degree. Obviously, it's not nearly the same as nullsec, where at least you have asset safety. So worst case scenario, you're going to lose 30%, I believe, of your asset value. But it's obviously going to be pretty rough, pretty hard on them. There's evacuation procedures they can undertake that'll minimize that loss a little bit. But Hard Knocks has been one of those entities that's been on the side removing people from their space for a very long time. And karma will eventually catch up to all people, right? So if they're in a position where now it's them losing their home, it seems only just desserts, I would say.
Yeah. How effective are wormhole groups inside of nullsec? Does every empire or every nullsec group have some kind of a group that can that knows how to move around through these things?
No.
Just ask Pro God.
Specific for test question.
No, Test has a group of individuals that do wormhole work for us now, and they do a very good job. But certainly that's not the standard we've always lived with, and it's not the standard for every alliance in EVE by any means. We've certainly watched over the years multiple large and capable alliances struggle to traverse wormhole space in a meaningful way. It's not necessarily easy. It's not as easy as it looks at times.
Yeah. So this is not only rare, but at this scale, it's unprecedented.
Yes, this is very much a first in-game kind of event. Obviously, it's not the first wormhole Keepstar to die. I believe Hard Knocks killed that a while ago, but it's certainly an event where something that many people thought was undoable is now being done, and that is certainly why many of us are, kind of giving initiative the kudos they perhaps deserve.
Right. And it's in no small way the incentive to actually do this is it's going to be a historic moment. We've had a few this year. I think the last 16, 18 months, we've seen a lot of historical moments. I think the game has just moved to a different level.
There's a lot.
I appreciate Valley being willing to say that this was a big deal, because all I've seen on Reddit all day today is how this wasn't that big a deal, and we blobbed them, so obviously it was gonna die. So thanks. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm not going to say that the conclusion was not foregone to a degree once you achieved your striking point and your beachhead. But that striking point in that beachhead and the organization to put this all together is integral to the accomplishment itself. Saying that, once you reach, the edge of the cliff that you can push the boulder over, of course you can. But the work of moving that boulder all the way up the hill, all the way up the cliff, is the truly difficult part of the task, and many people don't always understand that.
And that's the hardest. I'm a logistics guy. It's what I do for a living, and I think a lot of people don't realize that, for all the guys out there that are, shooting and blowing things up, there are lots of guys in the background that are doing the heavy lifting to get this stuff put into place. There's no way we could have done this. I mean, if we did not have a hardcore crew, and I give the corporate in it that's been doing this as Big Shadows, I give these guys a ton of credit. They did this all on their own dime. There was no alliance money involved in this. They put all of the stuff together, got everything together, planned it out. It was basically Riven and Pando who put kind of this thing in motion, and it was an epic amount of work that had to get done, and it all had to be done in secret, and it all had to be done in the middle of the night or when they're not paying attention in their home system. So this is not, it's not like a null sec fight. It's not like a low sec or a high sec war. This is not something that you can just decide, all right, guys, next week we're going to war, get your shit together, start sorting your stuff and get ready to move on Saturday. This took a lot longer to put together. And I think that's kind of why, even without getting a fight today, it looks like we're not going to get one. It's still a pretty big deal that this was done. I think the other thing that I think is important is that there has been I guess you could call it a reputation, or at least a belief that has become accepted as fact within the EVE community, that these wormholes were unassailable and they were never going to be able to evict them, especially not an outside group coming in. And I would have said the same thing, because every time we had done this to try to do anything remotely similar to this, bring a fleet in to fight. Remember a couple months back, we brought a fleet of ships in to fight Laserhawks in their staging, and we got dumpstered. And it just that's kind of the philosophy is that these guys are hardcore. They know what they're doing. They'll fight like hell in their systems, and there's no way you can do this without planning. And I think that's kind of the reason why we put the planning that we did into this, and didn't underestimate HK or try to give them a hard time. And I know a lot of folks are pissed that we're blobbing them, or we've got 1,000 people or something like that. I mean, honestly, that's a sign of respect. We would not have brought this number if we didn't think we needed it. So I think
really,
at the very end of the day,
it's not just to be a part of it.
Say that again, Matt.
I'm sorry I interrupted you. I was going to tease you a bit. It's not just to be a part of the history and maybe.
Well, I'm sure that there's some folks in here that were doing that, but I mean, originally speaking, we were. This was touch and go for us. We were really concerned in the beginning and making sure we got control. Like Viley said, you get the beachhead in there, and once that's there, then all right, okay, you did it. You managed to get your guys in there. But I mean, this could have been Normandy, but the Nazis pushed the Americans off the off the beachhead. If one thing or two things or three things go wrong, or a fleet gets blown up, or something this happens, or Horde and the rest of the guys manage to get a connection in, and they get reinforcements in, then the tide could have turned a completely different way. So the fact that we were willing to commit so much and make such a big deal about this, I think that's a sign of respect to HK, that we didn't take them. We took them seriously and treated them like they were a worthy opponent, and they have been. I think they are. I wish we could have got more fights out of it, but
out of curiosity, has Horde and PL and NC, etc., been attempting to roll in and assist, or is that just speculation?
We know that there was a Horde fleet. Or go ahead, L2.
There was a very large engagement yesterday, just before the armor timer, or day before yesterday, excuse me, where we happened to land a perfect bombing run when they warped to 0 on bubbles on the Stuka fleet. They were trying to get to our Raven fleet that was on the hull, and once they did that, they were ignoring the Stuka fleet while they landed right at perfect bombing range. That was their attempt to gain hull control, and they actually had the connection ready. They had the connection lined up for all of their friends to come in, and they were already moving through that connection. That was their attempt to try and gain the upper hand. And if they had maybe landed at 0 on the bomber fleet and we hadn't gotten bombs off, they would have absolutely shredded the bomb fleet. And that would have been a complete turning point for the battle.
And would have gotten their fleet in, and they would have had an extra 200 or 300 bodies potentially.
Well, I was familiar with that fleet. I think it had over 100, but not many over 100.
There was more than just one
not
fleet
just
of people
Horde.
coming to that. Yeah,
Okay.
there was other people that had rolled that hole as well, or that had rolled that connection. So it was not just Horde. There were other wormhole groups as well trying to make that.
And that's a point I'd like to make as well. This isn't over. Like, there's still groups that are going to be trying to rage roll in. There's still plenty of people. Like, this battle isn't done. The main reason we've done as good as we've done is because we've maintained hold control. The logistics and everything like that are fantastic, but the biggest thing in the whole situation is our scanning guys and keeping hold control. If we didn't keep hold control, we would lose. Numbers don't matter.
I fully agree with that sentiment up to this point, but I think after this point, you're very much in a position where it should be a lot closer to a free ride than not, I would think. Do you think that what allies Hard Knocks can gather are going to be interested in risking it all, I guess you could say, to come and help them when the primary objective has already been lost?
I mean, so I've talked to quite a few wormholers, especially recently. And like somebody said earlier, like when you get the British guy and the Scottish guy, like they have their differences, but when a foreign invader comes to their lands, they band together, no matter the differences they have. And most wormholers that I've talked to recently or came in contact with one way or another have all came to consensus on that same thing. So, like, yeah, we're doing good. We're definitely in a very strong position, but I wouldn't claim victory yet. We still have a long way to go. We still have a whole nother Keepstar to go through, and that's more time for them to rage roll and what have you.
The big thing is that there's still another Keepstar in here that hasn't been reinforced yet. There's still plenty of time for them to be able to come in and have another chance at getting a lot of their stuff out. They've been seen moving stuff. We've watched them move AT ships around. We've watched them move freighters around. We've tried to catch a few of them, and we've been successful in some cases, but in others we haven't. So there's still plenty of stuff in that other Keepstar in here, and they still have plenty of time to be able to combat this.
Do you guys have any examples of juicy loss mails? I haven't been paying a ton of attention to the situation.
There's been a few.
Usually it's pretty hard to catch people when they're EV.
There's been a few empty dreadnoughts, and
there was a 6 billion-esque cargo dreadnought the other day too.
Okay, so you got something. It's just, yeah, no, I mean the whole situation is, to me, I kind of view it as like it's one of those situations where once you achieve the primary objective, I would think it's going to be extremely difficult for them to, rally any more people to their cause when the castle is already fallen. If you understand my kind of meaning, there's just not a ton of incentive to do more or even more extreme work to, defend a lesser objective. And I think at this point, from just the people that are I'm seeing chatting now, especially from wormhole groups, is that they basically are done. They're kind of conceding the battle, I guess you could say. Which is not to say that you're not going to need to be vigilant in the next coming week or so, but to me it seems like this is the kind of the breaking moment.
I agree. We're in a very strong position. It's just I think we have enough respect for them or for our enemies and I guess the wormhole culture to understand that this isn't over. Like if they come in and they get a couple of good wins and they stream more people in and they get whole control, it's a whole different ball game.
Yes, absolutely. But then the question becomes, would you not be interested in a little bit of content on your week-long wait as you sit here waiting for the next Keepstar?
Oh man, I mean, I'm honestly myself, not as what I am in initiative, but myself, yeah, I would love the content. But in a strategic sense, like the best thing we can do tactically is to keep the hole shut.
Yes, so strategically, yeah. Obviously, the best case scenario is to continue to prevent them any access.
The other thing is that it won't take really over another week to do this. We already know the future timers for the other Keepstar as well, and it's not going to be a week. With the reduced timers that you have for Citadels and Wormholes, it's
I thought you
not going
said
to
it
be.
was Friday night.
Yeah, it's Friday night. I mean,
So if you
the goal
reinforce
is
it
to be-
tonight, which is Tuesday night, the secondary timer would be, in theory, possibly Wednesday night or Thursday, which means with a 3-day minimum, it's going to be a 9-day timer.
There's not a 3-day minimum. The first Keepstar only had a day or 2 days and change on it. There wasn't a 3-day minimum. It's cut in half.
Yeah, but well, no, the 3-day minimum can be like 2 days, 20 hours, or something like that. But is that not correct?
I believe the Keepstar is timed for Friday or Saturday, but I'm pretty sure that we might be able to still get it in this week. I think
I
that's the
thought
plan.
my understanding was that they shortened all the timers for Wormhole
They did.
Space.
They did.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, hi, Creature Ripio. How you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Once again, we have a lot of nullsec voices in here talking about wormholes, and we would invite anybody who knows a lot about wormholes to come in and talk.
Yeah,
to
I
us as well.
apologize, Toda. I have not dealt with Citadels and Wormholes ever. So I'm only talking from my own experience.
Yeah, I lived in a wormhole for a little bit, but I mean, it hasn't been since it was before Citadels. So as well, Tess lived in Wicked Creek. I was part of our wormhole corp, but we don't really talk about that time.
Well, we got to get Cascora in here.
Yeah, we'll take care of that. Tomorrow we have the midweek update, talking in stations with Artemis, and he's going to have wormholers on the show, Cascora and Ixuki, and both of them, and more. We'll be talking about this fight, but also contextualizing it into wormhole living and what that's like. Then Sunday we'll have the Sunday Talking in Stations show, which I will do, and I'll probably have Pando in here to talk about this. He is the leader of this invasion from Initiative, and some of the wormhole guys and girls that set it up. So they had a year or so of logistics work and sneaking into this place and what's called seeding it, which means putting seeds in for this kind of destruction. And that happened many, many months ago. And it's funny because Initiative was able to benefit in a way from another group taking all the risk, right? Sneaking in and not getting caught and paying for everything too. And then when things were ready, Initiative brought all the people, and they brought their allies with them as well. So what's the damage at? What are we looking at here? And what's TIDI at?
TIDI's at 87.
TIDI's been almost inexistent for the whole fight, though.
It's popping up now because I think we're seeing a little bit of fighting. 68% right.
Does do rockets and explosions or missiles and explosions affect TIDI worse than anything else?
Anything that puts load on the server will impact it, but I think the stuff that requires a lot of calculations, like bomb damage, AoE damage, those types of things, that's what really.
That's what I was thinking. Like the AoE damage from each missile or bomb or torpedo.
It looks like
less than 25% on that armor, or
38% is what I'm being told.
38%. Okay. I can put up some kind of a score.
Speaking of server load, can I ask a question, Brisk?
Go right ahead.
I understand that there's a long-term plan to move drones to the same server-side mechanic as fighters to reduce the load from having to load each of them on grid as individual objects. You know anything about that?
I am not aware of that. That's not to say it's not happening. I just don't know.
Figured it didn't hurt to ask while we had you here.
Oh, I see. I just looked up the mechanics log, by the way. It's 0.5 days for wormhole space. So, yeah, you're going to be quite able to get it on its final Friday timer.
Yeah, Billy, you were thorough. You went and looked it up.
Yes.
I didn't.
So, yeah, you won't have any issues. It's 0.5 for wormholes, 2.5 for nullsec, highsec, or nullsec, lowsec, and 5.5. I think it. I don't know. I just closed the box. It was 5 for high, something for highsec.
We see
We
some
just killed a
bombs.
Cerberus. That was exciting.
We just see some bombs flying in on the left of your screen. Those little look like invisible.
I'm pretty sure those are structure guided bombs off the Keepstar bomb launcher that just chase the Ravens that it can never.
Yeah, that's one of the funny things with these. The guided bombs will just keep going until you warp off. So when these guys are booshing, they just start. You get this trail of bombs that fly around behind them. And you got to pray that they warp off fast enough before the bombs hit.
So will they continually fly around the grid looking for a target?
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's hilarious. So you might see a whole bunch of them running around like school children after a bus.
Oh yeah, it's not uncommon. Like one thing we used to do, we did this summer, I guess, is you would put bombs on like a ship that the bombs couldn't catch the ship, so it'd be like a scepter or something, and you would just have that ship orbit the fleet or whatever, and you get like 10 or 15 bombs built up on them.
That is hilarious. Well, interesting strategy for those that aren't familiar. Can you tell us what's going on, how they're attacking this structure? Either Brisk or Billy, like
Give me 1 second because we're in the middle of some maneuvers and
transitioning.
So basically, right now they've got a big fleet of jackdaws, big fleet of bombers, big fleet of ravens.
Hmm.
The ravens are shooting from range, booshing around. The jackdaws are darting in and out and just shooting the thing when they can and warping out when they feel danger. Looks like there's a squad or two of hostile stealth bombers that are trying to get off some bomb runs, but it's pretty hard when you're dealing with jackdaw fleets and Stuka fleets, etc. Any kind of fleet comp that has command destroyers that can activate micro jump drives.
Now, jackdaws are used a lot in these Keepstar fights. Is that because together, if you get enough of them, they can hold the timer?
It's a combination of things. Generally, jackdaws have a combination of range, sig tank, natural tankiness, damage, cost efficiency. They're small enough that they're hard to hit by a lot of things. They can defend themselves against bombs. They do enough damage to be meaningful, and at the same time, they're just in this kind of situation, they're low mass. So jackdaws aren't generally superior to anything, but they're just kind of a very efficient fleet, I guess you could say.
Hmm.
So essentially, the way that the Raven fleet that we have works, it's designed to be able to stay on grid on a Keepstar that is actively being manned. And in addition to the Ravens, there are also command destroyers that they use. We basically, as Vada said, to boosh, which is usually basically using the micro jump drive field generator to move the fleet 100 kilometers at a time. And that way we can get out of the way of bombs coming in. We can get out of the way of super carrier fighters. Obviously, there aren't any in here because this is a wormhole. But in a null-sec Keepstar fight or a high-sec Keepstar fight, we would, well, not a high-sec, but a null-sec Keepstar fight, we would have super carriers, titans, those types of things on grid. The other thing that we have in the fleet are we have designated guys that are in X-Squirrers that have been fitted out to be very, very heavy in terms of mass, because the Keepstar Doomsday, the mechanic there, they fire the Doomsday at the fleet. The Doomsday hits and kills the top 8 biggest ships in the fleet. So we have basically sponges that are designed to absorb the damage from the Keepstar when they throw the Doomsday at us, so it doesn't hit any ships that are actually doing DPS, none of the Ravens. And that's something that we put together to deal specifically with Keepstar Doomsdays. But basically what will happen is that the Raven fleet will just circle the Keepstar and put damage on it and try to hit the damage cap as much as possible to try to burn this thing down as quickly as it can while avoiding all of the damage incoming from the Keepstar. So far, that's what they've managed to do.
It's down to 20%. We're getting close. It's probably another 10 minutes at the most.
Well, what's TIDI at in there, Brisk?
It is 68% right now.
So
maybe 15 minutes.
So 25%, that would normally be 30 minutes, 20, so 8 doubled. So you're talking about 25 minutes to go. So, if you're at 20%, then 20 minutes.
Right.
Tape,
As far as I can tell,
math.
we are not hitting the damage cap right now because I'm getting my hits in. I'm not getting deflected stuff. So,
Well,
and
I
I'm in
mean,
a
with the fleets you have on
retribution,
grid,
so-
I have no doubt you guys are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it still says paused.
Now I'm getting deflected.
Paused is
now
just
that I said.
what, 15, 20% to
Oh.
get paused.
I think so. Yeah.
But yeah, there's at least 500 or 600 people in grid. I would find it almost impossible for them to not be at damage cap.
We have one
You
full
only
fleet
need
of
about 100
Ravens, one
DPS
full
per-
fleet of Stukas, and a secondary Stuka fleet. So we have at least 500 plus characters in here. Just in it. I don't know how many goons we have. And tissue and snuffed.
Well, one of those Raven fleets, probably 300-400, probably about 180 Ravens in a 250-man fleet. So, you know, by default, you're talking
a
well
lot
over
of
damage cap just on the Raven. Yeah, no, at this point, I'm actually not going to lie. I'm kind of disappointed that the hull timer for wormhole space is so short. But when I read that 0.5 day timer thing, I was kind of surprised because it seems like in wormhole space you would want to have at least the same as nullsec in terms of a 2.5 day chance to organize yourself for a final timer. But it seems that's not the way the mechanics work.
Sorry, I keep having to go in and out. I'm actually off seeing on grid right now, so.
That's all right. Thanks for being here and talking to us and telling us what's going on in there.
So tell me, Brisk, do you guys have a plan for asset recovery and how you guys are going to do it in here?
What we have asked all the guys to do is allow the big shadows guys who were the ones who were responsible for doing all of the logistics. They get the first half hour of looting. We're going to let them go out and try to recover some of the money that they put in, and then after that, it's a free for all. But I don't know whether the goons or any of the other groups are going to honor that or not. So I think, frankly, when it comes down to it, this is going to be a cluster, and it's going to be kind of crazy. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I assume that's
gonna be
half an hour unaffected by TIDI or half an hour in
I think it's half an hour real time. So we'll see what
real
happens.
time. Oh, so
I mean, honestly, I'm expecting.
Then.
It's entirely possible that the server could go kablooey when this thing blows up. We have no idea.
We're
So
down pretty quickly
shall see.
to 10%. Can someone confirm that number? I went ahead and put it up.
Actually, we're at about 14%.
Okay.
Just to clarify to somebody in chat, Ron, there's no ADMs don't affect the way the Keepstar timer works at all. It's based upon the reinforcement mechanics of just citadels in general.
I think it was Billy that was asking about the half day or the 0.5.
Yeah, I went and looked it up. Yeah.
I think to a certain extent that kind of echoes what a lot of devs have said, which is that they never expected us to actually live in wormholes.
Yes,
and I
but
think
when
that's
they
true.
when they set up this, the recent round of changes, people have been living in wormhole space for years now. So it seems a little short-sighted to think that nobody's going to live in wormhole space when people are already living in wormhole.
Yeah,
Right,
they
I
fully
think-
intend on people living out of these. Like, I mean, didn't they ask for a while if there should actually be keep stars or whatever in wormhole space?
Well, part of the thing was there's really no reason for them other than as a kind of a morale kind of thing, because you can't have Titans and Supers in wormhole space because you can't build them here.
Well,
and
to
you
be
can't
fair,
bring them in because they're too big.
people said that about HiSec, where you don't even
That's
get the
true.
Doomsday. And I can assure you there is some pretty significant advantages to a Keepstar versus a regular Fortizar in more than just nullsec situation. Just even
that's
that
true. You're right.
massive
You're right.
hit point bonus is hyper relevant. when you're trying to defend your space, especially in a situation in wormhole space where you're dealing with often very lower number engagement.
No, yeah, I don't think anybody's arguing that they're not like advantageous, but just is it really necessary to have Keepstars in wormhole space? Like, should they even be like allowed coding wise? But obviously that's gone and past. It's not that huge of a deal. Obviously, I mean, obviously they're killable, so it can be done.
This wasn't the first one killed in wormhole space, either, right? So
No, Laserhawks had the first one killed, I believe.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
And HK killed it, by the way.
Yeah. Well, no, they killed the oh God, who was it? I don't remember the name. It wasn't Laserhawks. It was some Russian group. Burning, not I don't want to say Inner Hell. Yeah.
Oh, Inner Hells. That's right. Now I'm getting them confused. They both killed capitals of mine, so I got them confused.
Yeah, same. I got tackled by them a couple times. And then I think like a couple of their leaders went AFK or whatever, and so they sprung the trap. I don't want to say trap. Sprung their plan into action and killed it with some carriers. It was very well done.
What I think that makes this such a big deal is not so much that we're killing the first Keepstar in the game, yeah, and being able to kill the Keepstar, but it's more the fact that a nullsec entity came in and used wormhole tactics to take over the wormhole, and the fact that we spent a year preparing for this, which says a lot actually to the wormhole community, that it took us a year to prepare for this
fight. I think the big event component to this is not that you guys, like, obviously the preparation was exceptional, but I think the component that really adds flavor to this event is that it's Hard Knocks. You are effectively dethroning the kings of wormhole space. Like, that is what is really drawing the interest in the situation. Everyone knows that Hard Knocks has been the most relevant wormhole groups for at least the last 2 to 3 years, if not significantly longer, right? So that's what really adds the flavor to this event. The preparation, well done. But once you had that beachhead, I don't feel that the outcome was a coin flip, as I think you guys have suggested at a point. Once you did the work, I apologize for my microphone. It drops in and out as I try to put my words together. But it's a situation where you have I'm trying to figure out how to do it.
Actually, you sounded pretty good there. So
basically, the key component is that this is Hard Knocks, not that 1,000 guys have defeated 100. So that's really where I think you draw your strength and you say we did something nobody could have predicted us doing.
Yeah, I definitely the hype was definitely there because of who it was. I agree with that.
Well, we're getting close to the end here, probably under 10 minutes. I think best estimate is 10% left on this structure. This is, again, the first Keepstar ever built in EVE Online, Fort Knox, in wormhole space, which thought to be impossible to take this thing out. It certainly would have been impossible for wormhole groups to take this out. They would have all had to join together to do it. But since the initiative with the Imperium decided to make this a target, they were able to put 1,000 or more guys into this system, which is an enormous amount for wormhole space, which usually only sees a few hundred at a time at the most.
Well, it's definitely kind of interesting. I wonder how this would have all went with because people have been mentioning that they didn't need all the planning. Obviously, they didn't need all the planning in hindsight. But to me, the interesting point is how successful could they have been if they just decided on one weekend that we're going to go to Rage with 1,000 dudes and do all this? How would that event have taken place, and how would that fight have transpired? I think that would have been kind of interesting. Obviously, you have nowhere near the guarantee of success, and obviously, the way it's done now is very close to perfection in a way. But certainly, it's an interesting kind of question to ask.
Can anyone confirm 5%, by the way?
Yes, 5%.
Right.
The biggest.
It is 5%.
the biggest thing I think that would happen if we were just to kind of go in there willy-nilly without any kind of plan is we wouldn't have had anything in there to seed our losses. I think that would have been the biggest downfall. They would have actually rage rolled in and killed, 50% of our Raven fleet, then there's 50% of our DPS on the Keepstar. I think that would have been the biggest problem.
Yeah, that's certainly possible.
Because they don't actually have to defeat us at that point. They just have to hurt us enough to where we can't complete the mission.
No, I mean, that's obviously evidently true. I'm just more so interested in the component of perhaps getting a fight out of it, I guess you could say, and how that would have went and worked. So
4%.
I think we still might get a fight. Like I said, we still got the whole other Keepstar now. It's an uphill struggle for anyone from here, but I think there could still be one good battle to happen before this is all said and done. Hopefully, it's not a wipe like that one attempt. I hope it's not.
I think you guys have been far too efficient in your control of the holes to have that happen. I think at this point you've seen multiple times that they've self-destructed both capitals and pods, and if they plan to make a final stand, this should have been the time to do it. I don't think there's another case.
I mean, the reality is there just aren't enough people in wormhole space altogether to do this.
Who knows? Maybe Pando, after everything's all said and done, will agree with them to have like an honor battle.
3%.
Just for
honor battles are pretty uncommon.
I know.
Yeah.
So, Billy, you asked the question, how hard is the threshold going to be defined now that you've done it this way? And I mean, like Tom Clancy is very famous for having said the tactics are something that amateurs discuss and that only professional soldiers study logistics. And I think that the logistics are what were the winning factor here. And without that, it's kind of hard to say, how many dudes can you throw at a problem and make it happen?
Destruction is imminent.
1%.
Can you zoom out a little bit?
The comment I made is that the logistics of this obviously ensured your success, but my interest was more so in the factor of how over much you did it. Perhaps let's say. I'm not saying your logistics guys didn't do well; they did incredibly well. What I was saying is that. I think you can figure out what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying.
No, I got you. It's just you're right. Logistics did guarantee it, and without logistics, I don't think you can make it a guarantee.
We're about to see the destruction of the first Keepstar ever built in Eve. We're at 1% or less, and we are hearing that it is going. We don't see it yet.
It's like Hard Knots is getting ferreted out there.
Start to see
what happens with these
cans. No explosion, unfortunately, just wreckage.
No explosion in potato mode.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Okay.
I'll have a recording of the explosion up on YouTube.
Okay, we'll play video on tomorrow's show where we review everything that's happened over the last few days.
So do the cans appear like centrally, or are they just spread throughout the system?
It's a huge circle, starting about 100K from the edge of where you would tether the edge of tether.
Can you zoom out a little, Mataro? Can we see these?
Wait, so it puts the Rex
Yeah, the wreck is in the middle of an enormous ball.
And like a ball of cans that drop?
Yes.
We're about to zoom in.
Zoom out, not in.
No, zoom out or in?
Out.
Oh.
I know I can't. I speak Canadian and it's hard, but out.
It takes a couple minutes.
Oh, this is awesome. We have a Korean guy in our corporation that has an alarm clock for this, and dude's so excited.
There's all the yellow cans spawning.
The yellow cans, those are all the loot dropping from that giant Keepstar.
They're starting to spawn now.
So much for that specific corp getting to loot the Rex, I guess.
I know, right?
Yeah,
that didn't happen.
How are you gonna hold goons
We
back?
knew that was aspiration.
This is nullsec discipline right here. You're watching it. I told you, it's a bunch of kids around candy after a pinata exploded. Nobody's stopping that. No parents.
Exactly.
Yeah,
hopefully the Kill is posted, creature.
Yeah, I'm gonna post it in the sidebar of
put it in Twitch.
the stream. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, no, I think it's safe to say that there will be lots of juicy loot for everybody to pick up, but most of those ships are not going to have large cargo holds. So in theory, if your singular corp is well prepared with a large amount of haulers, they should be able to get a much larger component of it than the regular.
I don't want to say the kill mail is unimpressive because that's not what I mean, but like, does none of the like corporation stuff drop in it? I thought all of that would have been in the actual kill.
No, it does not. We've actually asked for that to be added before, but they've not gotten around to it.
I've been told Hard Knocks had everything cleared at all their corp hangars.
Would surprise me.
I mean, clearing out your corp hangars is easy. It's all the poor dudes that haven't logged in a month. You know.
Right. Exactly.
You know that's the big. You know, corp hangars. You have 15 people, 20 people that have access to it, and you can hire people to move it. It's all the individual dudes that generally get screwed the most in this kind of situation.
I'm actually surprised. I think that's fewer cans than when we evicted outlaws.
They're still spawning.
This might take a little bit.
Yeah, the cans are still spawning.
Yeah, I see that now.
TIDI in wormhole space before. Maybe we have, but I've never heard of it.
Hey,
So-
man,
Well,
check
just
that.
imagine every member that's lived in Rage in that Keepstar for the last 3 years. You know,
Yeah.
any random assets they have are spawning in a can right now. So you're obviously going to have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cans, I would think.
Thanks, Donovan, for that screenshot. We'll show you a picture of what that explosion looked like.
The one thing I am kind of sad about is that we're not going to see like an aggregate loot summary of what you guys got.
Yeah, that's going to be a shame. I would like to have seen that too.
By the way, I guess we need to give props to a Mr. Riven Avaran for top damage in a raid.
Who got top damage?
And Mr. Riven Avaran.
That's
Big Shadows.
amazing because he's the guy that put all this together.
Yeah,
That's
he's the guy that set this up.
Maybe he stayed a little close on a couple of the warp-ins to ensure he got top damage. Who knows?
Yeah, look at that eating frenzy.
Are they still spawning?
Yes.
You pretty much just have to like look at an area and see if any yellow boxes pop up. There's so much changing.
Right.
You can't
I
really...
found one
I've
that
seen
had a 13200 booster in it.
Well, nobody said you were going to get good stuff.
Yeah, if I had to guess, they probably stripped all their like dead space and expensive mods. You know, put them into like a hauler or some shit and just log.
Hey,
That's what I
Matterall,
would do.
Mm-hmm.
do you know what the reason is why people haven't started the actual timer on the other?
I don't. I was told it was strategic reasons. It leads me to think that they might want to save that for last while they clean out all the other structures. There's a ton of structures in there. It's not just 2 Keepstars.
Okay. Only reason is I've actually typed this before, but I'll say it. Honestly, get it in that first reinforcement. Even if you let it they can't refit it and then try to, change their strats and stuff like
I don't think
yeah.
they're. I don't
No,
think
I'm just saying, in
there's
general.
much you can do to.
If
Like,
you have a
the way
strategy,
Keepstar's-
I would like to hear it.
Yeah, like
Yeah. I don't think it's anything
aside
you can
from
do at this point.
So
aside from switching
the longer that you want to stay away from actually doing the whole hull control, it's more of a chance of getting people in. And now, if you guys have like a whole group that's going to hold it for a week, 2 weeks, whatever the case may be, then go for it.
Just for everybody's interest, there are over 416 cans on grid out at the moment that are to be looted. So
Yeah, our camera's flipping out probably because of the stuff that's loading in.
So yeah, it's looking pretty amazing. All those cans getting out there and etc. It's just it's great.
Y'all will be there.
As far as
forever
the
doing it.
refitting the Keepstar strategies things, the only relevant thing they can do to that Keepstar is set it to a 5-plate fit. Nothing else they're going to do is really going to change anything at all.
So what I'm told here is that someone apparently delivered a single 3200 to as many people as he possibly could have in order to create as many cans as possible.
That's pretty funny.
So that explains why Rescue found a 3200 can, and there's probably going to be a shitload.
Yeah, somebody did a D-scan at 416 cans.
Yeah.
Is that the final tally, or is that still growing?
I'm not sure, but that's the last number I saw and heard.
Do we know if Big Shadows has made any progress in recovering ships yet? Or do ships appear in the cans or in space?
They
Does
appear in
somebody
the
personally
cans.
appear in
I'm
space?
on one of the cans and I'm just jumping shit out into space. So we'll see.
Oh, anything good, Brisk?
There's a couple Tengus in here and some Legions and some other stuff.
So I guess you're not honoring this agreement to give
We
Big
were
Shadows
all
have
we
all
were
loot
told because
either.
nobody we were told basically because nobody was honoring it to just go get stuff. So that's what we're
Go and eat. Everybody else is.
Sure.
I'm trying to get some video of the explosion up. Right now, there's just general looting going on.
All right, guys, it's dinner time for me. Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you.
I got an Onyx. That's exciting.
I assume it's a whole rolling onyx, or
Well, that's pretty awesome stuff, but I'm going to go back to work now that this is all done. Have a good night.
I know.
Yeah, thanks for the stream, man. I'll be on in the peanut gallery. I'll go back to my hole. Have a good one.
We're now up to 912 containers in space. They're still spawning.
How's the lag?
See, TIDI is down to 42%, so it's actually pretty stable.
I'm kind of interested what this is going to mean for wormhole space overall.
A significant increase in paranoia.
Well, before this, at least there was kind of a level of safety that any wormhole organization could at least aspire to. They know that if they got big enough, they got strong enough, they could at least be the next Hard Knocks. And they had a model to kind of set up their empire, their home. And now with this situation, it definitely draws a dangerous picture where, if you piss off the wrong people or you make the wrong enemy, you could lose everything, no matter how safe you envisioned your wormhole to be in a matter of days. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or not.
I think it will significantly reduce your take on the next one.
I don't know what you mean.
I don't know if that's good or bad, I guess. But, I mean, now that people are aware that you guys are interested in paying attention, I think it'll definitely change.
Oh,
the way
Test
that
has
things happen.
Test has no interest in this stuff.
Yeah, I'm saying, I say you, meaning nullsec, not.
Well, my point stands. But I know what you're trying to say, I guess.
Yeah. So I think you're just going to see Wormhole Corps get basically leaner and meaner, so to speak. Trim that.
Yeah, yes and no. there's a lot of things in Eve that are lucrative, but they're not necessarily doable even if they are lucrative. The amount of effort, initiative is expended to achieve the success is well above the norm, let's say. I don't know. It's an odd situation for sure. And yeah, somebody asked in chat if HK is going to leave Rage or not. I'm not sure. I have been told that this has caused a lot of internal drama within Hard Knocks, and certainly they were on a slow downward decline for a long time. This may result in them breaking, or yeah, it's definitely not going to be a good thing for them, obviously. But I don't know how this is going to go, and if they'll rebound and come back, or what'll happen to them.
There's now more than 1,400 containers in space. Also, Imperium is currently killing some of their own ships who are breaking the looting policy.
I can assure you, Goon City, I know quite a bit. With that being said, I didn't say that any particular thing would happen. I speculated on what could happen. And I think it's not something necessarily I would want even to see. I think Hard Knocks has been, well, in their current form, I think they're better for the game than a game without them. Back when they were much more PL affiliated, I certainly was not a fan of them, to say the least. But over the last year or two, they've certainly become much more of an independent entity, and that's definitely given me a little bit of a different view on them, I guess you could say. There's multiple people saying in chat I'm quite wrong. I'm always willing to change my opinion if you present me with new evidence or tell me what you think is incorrect and back it up. No, Sovietsky's nobody anymore is. I'm in agreement with you on that.
It really wasn't that widespread before. Like there were people that were in and out of PL scattered through almost every wormhole corp.
But
all of the larger ones.
I'm not sure that there's, how do I put this? I don't think the connection was ever that HK was PL, but the friendship connections that Hard Knocks and PL have for a very long time been part of what has led people to make that conclusion. Very famously, what was it, early last year? It was Hard Knocks and PL who were dunking on Jay's Revenant in 1DQ, I believe it is, right? Or what's that system you guys used to stage from before that? DW or whatever. So saying there was no connection is obviously incorrect.
I didn't say there was no connection, but like it was more of just like a friendship thing in general than with maybe a smattering of people with actual connection. I mean, I was in Overload this, and we had a smattering of people from HK as well. Or not from HK, sorry, from PL.
Yeah, so all I'm saying is that traditionally there has been a connection between the two groups, and most people have assumed there would be, because if one came, the other would certainly be interested in or be offered to come join it many times. Over the last year or two, that connection seems to have really become disconnected, was the comment I had made. And I believe that's correct, just from the way I've seen, PL slowly deteriorating. And I guess, funny enough, to some degree, although definitely not to the same degree, Hard Knocks, I guess.
I think it's interesting. We're starting to see a little bit more of PL, like new people actually moving from PL to wormhole space as well. I mean, I'm not gonna name names for you. Like I don't want to draw any more attention than I have to. Sorry, not trying to be like all coy about it. Just I don't want to. I doubt
That's
you
their
want me
business.
talking about it.
Oh, apparently the audience cannot hear you. Okay. Well, at the moment we're looking at a big ball of yellow cans. It looks like Imperium forces are having a field day trying to loot them all. Unfortunately,
He's
it
got a
looks like.
broadsword.
Oh, and looks like Brisk is picking up multiple hicks. He's having a good time. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'd probably be having a good time too if I was sitting there and my whole job was just to loot a whole bunch of free shit. Doesn't sound like it'd be unpleasant.
Yeah, I mean, the reason it typically doesn't happen very often in wormhole space is that if you have to commit, you know, your 180 guys at max to doing around the clock for 3 days or a week, it's a lot more strain to do that kind of hold control.
Yeah. And to be honest, I was actually kind of surprised that Hard Knocks couldn't entice any allies to go like hard on initiative iHubs or something in Fountain, like to kind of draw off some pressure. But it is what it is, I guess.
I think they did do that a little bit. We had a couple of systems that got in Tosis early on, but then we were lucky. We talked to our buddies in Luck, and some other folks were able to do some protecting of our SOB for us, so we didn't have a lot of problems. But yeah, I would have thought they would have went after that more.
Yeah, to me, it seemed like they've definitely gone significantly harder than they did, I guess.
We're now over 2,000 hangar containers.
Jesus Christ.
Still climbing. And about 50% tie-dye.
Sovetsky, I wasn't suggesting that Hard Knocks do the Entosis. It was more so send Horde with a couple hundred guys to try and do it. Would be much more likely to have some success in drawing some pressure.
Brisk, would you guys have actually left, even if there was 500 Horde in Tosising your stuff?
Happened last present. Oh, see, and it just comes back. That's crazy. This happened last time too. Whenever I play a video, my sound gets taken over, and then something weird happens and mutes me for a while until I click the right thing. So I'll try to figure that out for future broadcasts. But I can see my signal is back, so I must be broadcasting. Let me know if I'm still silent. Oh yeah, there, good. Yeah, sorry about that. It's a technical problem, but luckily we have some great EVE players here, like Billy, to talk us through what's going on. And Commander A's is giving us information on how many cans have spawned. They continue to spawn around that Keepstar wreck. Is there tie-dye in the system?
There is about 50% to 60% tie-dye right now.
Yeah, so that's probably from all the stuff that's being spawned in. All those little yellow dots are cans of some sort of thing contained within. It could be a ship, could be modules, could be both. Could be, who knows, minerals. But
Anyways,
yeah,
Matt, I have to head out. I just want to say thank you for having me on.
anytime, Billy.
Congratulations to Initiative on your victory, and have a good.
I'm so glad you came. I was just thinking about you today, in fact. So I'm glad you showed up.
It was an interesting event to watch. I haven't been playing as much lately, so it's always nice to see what's going on.
Yeah, thanks.
Take care.
We have now officially passed 2,500 hangar containers in space. So this thing's paying out like a broken freaking lottery machine.
Yikes.
Keeping in mind that this is after HK has been blowing up dreadnoughts and stuff for insurance money all day. You know.
Oh yeah, but we know they've been living there a long time too. So
yeah, so there's likely a lot of these cans are going to be people that have left the game over the course of moving into Hard Knocks when it was first anchored back. I don't even know when it was first anchored. It was several years ago at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So you got all of those people that are still going to have their stuff in there.
Okay, disadvantage of having my mic back on is you can hear me type. So what you're seeing are some artifacts from the connection we have. We are remote. We're remoting into somebody else's machine that's there, and that's what the connection is giving us. So we'll just consider that wormhole weather and apologize for it. But
Matterall, I'm going to head out as well. I'm going to go loot, so I will see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks, Brisk.
As always.
All right. We'll stay on for just a few more minutes here. It's past destruction time, and as you can see, the Keepstar, the first Keepstar ever made, is destroyed. That's its wreck, the black area in the middle of that ball of yellow. The yellow specks all around it are station containers that have been launched into space. I believe that's only 50% of them. So there was about twice as many of those in the actual Keepstar. And I think it's a 50% destruction rate. So an amazing payday for the 1,500 pilots that are there today.
I will be surprised if it's not trillions.
Yeah. Oh, it's 100% drops. Thank you for correcting me. That means those are all the station containers. That is amazing. I'm not sure I knew that, actually, that everything in wormhole space drops. That is pretty good for the people who are there today. I'm going to fix my camera real quick.
Hey, Matterall. Hey, guys.
Hey. Introduce your name for audio listeners.
Yeah, this is Ron USMC from Test. I see Razor and Billy just left, so got to fill in the test
the
slot
test
here.
present. Yeah.
We were kind of talking about this earlier, just amongst ourselves. What do you guys think the over under for is on dropped loot?
What do you mean by that? The under and over?
Well, so it's like the kind of the middle, right? Like the over under for me would be right around, it could go either way, of like 1.5 trillion.
Oh,
just over, just under, like embedded.
The total amount you're saying, how much dropped here? Oh, I don't know. I think it takes a different type of player to even estimate that. Wormhole players know what they pack away, and they're an incredibly lucrative part of the game. So you make a lot of money, and you really just constantly upgrade your equipment. So they are rich, most of them. And I would assume this is one of the bigger groups. It's probably over 1 trillion, and that might be a small estimate. It could be as many as, well, who knows, 3 trillion, or more, or it could be just barely over 1 trillion. It's probably safe to say it's 1 trillion in assets, though.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot of them. There's a lot of players that aren't even, say, active anymore that have their stuff in there. It's, there's just no way to tell. All you can do is estimate by the size of the group and how much money they usually made. And these guys rented out a lot of space too inside of wormholes, and what that money was actually used for, how many assets were moved to their operating bases in nullsec. There's a lot of factors. There's no way to know. They'll be the only ones that could tell us, if they
And
can even
hopefully
tell
there'll
us.
be a lot of bragging afterwards, right? Comparing loot.
Yeah, but you still won't get a complete picture, because if somebody
True.
took something incredibly expensive and wasn't supposed to have it, they'll probably just never say they took it. It's funny to see, and not unexpected, that the looting took place right away as soon as the explosion happened. They were told, and the instructions went out to the Imperium, do not jump on the loot. Let the people who made this possible have some time to dig around and grab good stuff. And that kind of order completely ignored. Yeah, but I think if you're asking the audience, like, what do they think is in there, it would be a fun thing to see what they say. So.
Yeah, they are saying that we are way underestimating this. They were saying between 30 and 60 and 25 trillion and lots of crazy.
Depends on who's watching us. Is that initiative, or is that? It depends on who's watching us. I would assume. Someone rents from HK. So I don't know. Really don't know. Yeah. It also wouldn't surprise me if it got up into the 10s, 20, 30 trillions either. Like, that wouldn't shock me. It might shock me.
Right.
If you think about the entire payouts that went for World War B or the Casino War, that was, I think that was about 29, 30 trillion, sorry. So,
and that was a shocking amount of money. I mean, that was just shocking.
Yeah, the money was like just falling into people's pockets at an incredible rate. This situation might be similar. We just have no idea. Like, somebody from HK could tell us. That would be interesting.
Do you see any freighters on grid? I see a bunch of scattering ships, but I don't see many cargo.
I don't know what they're collecting in, but yeah.
They're dumping to
their own stations in the system.
Yeah.
Oh, people are using DSTs, space transport.
Do you want to warp a freighter to every one of those cans?
No, I'm good.
Be here till next month.
But I'm happy watching.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Don't you think they're just filling up and then taking it to their own stations in that system and then coming back for more?
Don't know what the tactics. Yeah, you can definitely see them. You see them flying off to the left of the screen. That's them going to unload and to come back for more. We're zoomed up pretty good here, so we can look at the cans and the activity. But if you look on the left, they'll be coming and going off the left-hand side.
All right.
That was really interesting to hear about that kind of miswarp on the side of Hard Knocks, because I didn't realize that it got that close on the hull control.
Mm-hmm.
That was super.
Yeah. So what we're seeing now is, after the destruction of Fort Knox, is an amazing amount of loot has dropped, all of it basically. So they're jumping in there and trying to grab all that stuff, and they'll be doing that for hours. And then the rest of the stuff in the system will get destroyed. And finally, probably ultimately, the second Keepstar called Unassailable Wealth would be destroyed. Now for our viewers, I want to thank you guys for showing up and the people who have been in channel here talking with us. This first part of their mission has succeeded, and they have destroyed Fort Knox. Thought really to be something that could never be destroyed, and here it is in ruins. But I want to let you know also, if you want to continue watching this, because we're actually going to go off air, I have to leave. You can watch it on Imperium News. They have some people there, so I encourage you to go watch Boat and the gang as they finish up their coverage. They'll probably be talking about it. It might be a bit gloaty, so if you feel bad about this loss, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I could imagine that will be very true.
Yeah, not sure I would recommend it, but
No, the big red boat just got potted out.
You got potted out?
Yeah.
There goes their camera. Poor
And
guy.
HK Saber caught him.
An HK Saber caught him? Oh, that's
Yes.
hilarious.
It might be a good time to go watch him.
Yeah, might be good. You can see the Keepstar that he's sitting in. Oh yeah, he's in. Oh, he's all the way back in Delph. Oh, that's probably why he was laughing. Poor guy. Well, anyway, I am not going to stick around though, because we're really going to be looking at this, and I could hold the airwaves open for people to talk, but I couldn't really moderate that, and so I have to shut down the stream. But anyway, so I want to thank you guys for watching. Actually, let's see. I was looking at Boat's channel to see how to throw it to him, and I did that, but I've lost track of our channel. There it is.
Is this officially a Talking in Stations Wormhole Edition special Tuesday night report?
No, and that's what I was going to say next. First, I want to. So yeah, I want to say that we are going to have a special show tomorrow. Check it out. We'll have wormholers on there to talk about what happened here. We're going to talk to the people who made this happen, and then we'll talk on Sunday. We'll probably have more wormhole people and really try to get their side of it. See what happened. Most of the people that we've had on the live show are people familiar with Talking in Stations, and we do a lot of nullsec news, and that's why we had a nullsec heavy presence. But we want to do news for not just nullsec, wormhole space, low security space, high security space, industrial. We really want to do, and it's not news, it's just talking about the game. So we're not a news service, but we're just basically experienced players that want to share what we know with you. That's really all Talking in Stations is. But yeah, we do have a show tomorrow lined up for you, and again on Sunday, so make sure you check those out.
Yeah, and tomorrow's show is on the other timer, right?
I'm not familiar if it's on the other. I think tomorrow's show is actually about this whole thing and what it's like living in wormhole space. Yeah, there's no other timers that are as important as this one was. Maybe the last timer for the second Keepstar that's in there, the only existing Keepstar in there now.
Yeah, it's that Keepstar just off in the distance. I think the timer is right now is 23 hours or something.
Yeah. I can see how this is demoralizing to some people, because the game, and people have been warning CCP about this, the game is really now much heavier. It's kind of lopsided in that the more people that you have, the more success you're going to have. It wasn't necessarily always the case, but a lot of the development of the game has made it so that bigger groups do better, especially organized bigger groups. And that's not necessarily always the case, but it is mostly the case. And I think why people can be sad about this is now wormhole space is not necessarily immune to the power of numbers either. They never were, maybe, and this is just, they just never had the interest to do it. And maybe this is the only thing that is interesting enough to do, right? The first Keepstar that was ever built, Fort Knox, it really kind of dared you to go in there and destroy it. And that lure might have been just enough to get nullsec interested in taking it out. Plus, having it set up for you didn't hurt either. So it just depends. If the people who set this up have an agenda to go after Laserhawks, another wormhole group, Shekel Squad, then you may see more of these invasions actually happen. And then it would be kind of sad to see that nullsec can really wreak havoc in wormholes as well. But, like...
Shekel Squad has already imploded for you, so that's not happening.
Oh, have they? I didn't know that.
Yeah, like 6 months ago.
Oh, did they? Okay. So good. They're gone. They're wiped out.
Okay, so don't have to worry about that.
Not a big fan of theirs anyway, but Laserhawks are all right. So we'll see. I didn't know that they had actually self-destructed or whatever. I think was it infighting?
I mean, it was a ton of different stuff. Like if you join like any Discord where there are people in there and ask them about it, I'm sure you'll get an earful.
Okay.
And a really long earful of it. But yeah, and then they ended up scattering mostly between HK and Hawks. And some in some other smaller group.
So a lot of them were probably part of this.
Yeah, there were at least like 5 or 6 Shekel guys that I know of that were in Hawks at the time of this.
Yeah, God, there's over 2,700 cans spawning still. So it's huge.
That's unbelievable.
Right.
But Matterall, what you said is very true. You know, that wormhole space was just kind of off the radar because the barrier of entry of attacking them is just so high. It's, logic intensive that this sort of, says, hey, if you have the logistics, if you, have that will, you could do. And it's interesting. It changes the game.
So this in from Anonymous. 2 faction Fortizards so far have been recovered in the wreckage. Some guys claiming 40 to 50 billion in containers. Those are individuals claiming that, yeah. No AT ships claimed yet, so we'll leave it there. Thanks everybody for watching our coverage of the third and final. We need to give time for our cameraman to go loot. He's been very patient giving us this.
Poor cameraman.
This view, yeah. I'd like to thank. I think it's okay to say Patrick Millar very much for giving us a bird's eye view of what was going on in there. Really appreciate it. Thanks everybody. Remember to go to talkinginstations.com and join our Discord and hang out with us and talk with us about EVE Online. And make sure you watch our shows tomorrow, Thursday, about 24 hours or 22 hours from now. And again, this Sunday, 1600 UTC. Thank you very much, everyone. We will see you next time on Talking in Stations.